Maybe you should just marry me. 4 words. A throwaway joke Adrian Cole had used 100 times before. Safe, harmless, always good for a laugh. But tonight, in Elena Carter's pristine kitchen, surrounded by scattered tools and an unfinished shelf project, those words landed differently. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. It was suffocating. And when Elena finally looked up, her carefully constructed mask cracking for the first time in years, everything changed. What happens when this person you've been searching for has been standing right beside you all along? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The first thing anyone noticed about Elena Carter's apartment was how little it revealed about her. 30 floors above the city, floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a view that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, but the space itself felt deliberately empty. Clean lines, neutral colors, furniture that looked expensive because it was, chosen by someone who understood aesthetics but didn't particularly care about them. The only personal touch was a single framed photograph on the bookshelf, a candid shot from 5 years ago, Elena and Adrian laughing at something long forgotten, both of them younger and somehow less guarded. Adrian had been staring at that photo for the past 2 minutes, while Elena rummaged through her kitchen drawers, searching for something that might pass as a screwdriver. "I know I have tools somewhere," she muttered, pushing aside takeout menus and unopened mail. "I bought a whole set when I moved in." "That was 3 years ago," Adrian said, not looking away from the photograph. In it, Elena's hair was longer, wilder. She was wearing jeans and an old college sweatshirt, nothing like the designer clothes that now filled her closet. "You probably donated them." "I don't donate things I might need. Elena, you've never needed a hammer in your life. You have people for that." She straightened up, a rubber band and what appeared to be a wine opener in her hand. "I have you for that. I'm not people. You're different." She said it casually, the way she said most things that mattered, dropping significance like loose change. "You're the one person who doesn't want anything from me." Adrian finally turned from the photograph, something uncomfortable shifting in his chest. "I want your terrible coffee and your company, sometimes in that order." "My coffee isn't terrible. Your coffee tastes like something died in the machine." "Then stop drinking it." "Can't. It's tradition now." This was their rhythm, had been for almost 8 years. The easy back and forth, the comfortable silence, the way they could spend hours together without either of them feeling the need to perform. Adrian had other friends, people he'd known longer, but none of them fit quite like this. With Elena, he could just exist. She gave up on the drawers and gestured toward the wall where a cheap IKEA shelf still sat in its box. "I can't believe you actually agreed to this." "You asked." "I thought you'd say no. You worked a double shift today." "So did you." "That's different. I'm used to it." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "And I'm not?" "Elena, I've been pulling doubles since before we met." "That was different too." She paused, something flickering across her face that he couldn't quite read. "You had more energy back then." "I had less responsibility back then. Now I've got Mia." "How is she?" "Currently convinced she's going to be a marine biologist despite living in a landlocked state and being terrified of fish." Elena laughed. The real one, not the polished version she used for board meetings and charity dinners. "She's 7. She'll change her mind 12 more times before summer." "Probably. Last month she wanted to be a professional ice cream taster. That's actually a real job. Don't encourage her." They fell into comfortable silence again. Adrian knelt beside the box, pulling out the instruction manual that was somehow simultaneously in 12 languages, and none of them. Elena settled on the floor across from him, legs crossed, still in her work clothes, though she'd kicked off her heels somewhere between the elevator and the door. "You know," she said quietly, "you could have said no. I would have just paid someone." "I know. But you drove 40 minutes after a 12-hour shift anyway." "Yeah. Why?" Adrian looked up, surprised by the question. "Because you asked." Something in her expression shifted, softened, and tightened at the same time. "That's not much of a reason. It's the only reason I need." He went back to sorting screws, missing the way she pressed her lips together like she was physically holding words back. "Besides, Mia's at her grandmother's tonight. My apartment's too quiet without her. This is better." "Better than having an evening to yourself?" "Better than thinking too much." "About what?" He shrugged, not quite meeting her eyes. Everything. Nothing. The usual spiral. Elena knew about the usual spiral. She'd talked him through it enough times, late nights when the weight of single parenthood felt crushing, when he questioned every decision he'd made since Mia's mother left them both. She never offered empty platitudes or tried to fix things. She just listened, present and steady, until the spiral loosened its grip. "Well," she said, standing and moving toward the kitchen, "if we're doing this, I'm making coffee." "Please don't." Too late. Suffering builds character. "I have plenty of character." "Then consider it penance for all the times you've made me watch your terrible action movies. Those movies are classics. Those movies are why streaming services have a skip button." Adrian grinned, warmth spreading through his chest. The particular kind that only existed here, in this space, with this person. He turned back to the instructions, trying to make sense of the diagram that seemed to suggest the shelf should levitate. Behind him, the coffee machine gurgled to life, and Elena hummed something off-key. He'd heard her hum before, usually when she thought no one was paying attention. It was always the same song, something classical he didn't recognize, and always slightly flat on the same note. "You know," he called out, "for someone who went to a fancy prep school and probably had every music lesson money could buy, you're really bad at carrying a tune." The humming stopped. "I never took music lessons." "Really? My parents thought they were frivolous. Languages, mathematics, economics, those were acceptable. Everything else was a waste of time." There was no bitterness in her voice, just statement of fact, but Adrian felt the familiar surge of anger he always experienced when Elena mentioned her parents. They'd built an empire and destroyed a daughter in the process, then acted surprised when she took that empire and rebuilt it without them. "Well," he said, keeping his tone light, "you could still take lessons now. You're a billionaire. Pretty sure you could afford it. What's the point? I'm already bad at it. Might as well commit." "That's the spirit. Embrace mediocrity," says the man who's been staring at those instructions for 5 minutes without touching a single screw. "I'm strategizing." "You're stalling." "I'm ensuring optimal shelf placement through careful analysis, and you have no idea what you're doing." Adrian laughed, the sound echoing in the sparse apartment. "Not even a little bit." Elena returned with 2 mugs, handing him one before settling back on the floor. She was close enough now that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She'd been wearing the same scent for years, long enough that it had stopped being a perfume and become simply the way Elena smelled. "Okay," she said, looking at the scattered pieces. "How hard can this actually be?" Famous last words. "I'm serious, it's a shelf. People install these all the time. People who know what they're doing install these all the time. We're just 2 idiots with a dream. Speak for yourself. I'm a genius with a shelf. You're a genius who can't find her own screwdriver." Minor detail. They worked in tandem, Adrian reading instructions that seemed to contradict themselves, Elena sorting pieces and making observations that were sometimes helpful and often sarcastic. It was the kind of mindless task that should have been boring but somehow wasn't, not with her. "Hand me that bracket thing," Adrian said, pointing. "Which one?" "The one that looks like, I don't know, a bracket." "They all look like brackets." "The bracket-iest one." Elena snorted, picking up 3 different pieces before finding the right one. Their fingers brushed as she handed it over, and Adrian felt that familiar jolt, the one he'd been pretending didn't exist for the better part of 5 years. "So," Elena said, settling back with her terrible coffee, "tell me about the latest disaster." "Which disaster?" "I'm running several simultaneously." "The romantic kind. You've been weird for the past 2 weeks." Adrian paused, the bracket halfway to the wall. "Weird how?" "Distracted. More cynical than usual. You only get like that when you've been dating someone and it's falling apart." "I'm not that predictable." "You absolutely are. So who was she?" He sighed, lowering the bracket. "Jessica. Works in accounting. Nice. Pretty. Good with Mia." "So what went wrong?" "Nothing went wrong. That's the problem." Elena tilted her head, studying him with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Explain." "Everything was fine. She was fine. We were fine together. But every time I was with her, I kept thinking about—" He stopped, catching himself before the sentence finished. About what? About how it should feel different, better, more than fine. Maybe you're overthinking it. Maybe I'm not thinking enough. Maybe I'm just going through the motions with people who check boxes without actually making me feel anything.
Or maybe, Elena said quietly, you're comparing everyone to something that doesn't exist. What do you mean? She looked away, focusing on her mug with sudden intensity. You have this idea of what it should be like. Perfect compatibility, effortless connection, someone who just gets you without trying. But that's not real, Adrian. That's a fantasy.
Is it?
Yes. Real relationships are work, compromise, learning to fit together even when it's hard.
You sound like a self-help book. I sound like someone who's watched you do this same cycle for years. There was an edge to her voice now, something sharp and frustrated. You meet someone nice. It starts well. Then you find some reason it's not enough and you pull away. Every time. That's not fair. Isn't it? Sarah was too serious. Michelle talked too much. Rachel didn't talk enough. Jessica was too perfect. I never said she was too perfect. You just said everything was fine and that was the problem. They stared at each other, the sudden tension crackling between them like static. This was new. They didn't fight. Not like this. They disagreed about movies and debated ethics and argued about whether pineapple belonged on pizza, but they didn't have real fights. They didn't get angry. Adrian set down his tools carefully. Why does this bother you so much? Elena blinked, something vulnerable flashing across her face before her mask slammed back into place. It doesn't bother me. Yes, it does. You're actually upset right now. I'm not upset, I'm just… She stopped, pressing her fingers to her temples. I'm tired of watching you sabotage yourself. I'm not sabotaging anything. I'm being honest. I'm not going to settle for something that doesn't feel right. And what does feel right to you? What are you actually looking for? The question hung between them, heavier than it should have been. Adrian opened his mouth, closed it, felt something uncomfortable shifting in his chest. The same feeling he got sometimes when he looked at Elena too long, when she laughed a certain way, when she called him at midnight just because. I don't know, he said finally. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. I'd love to hear what this mythical perfect person looks like. Why are we fighting about this? We're not fighting. Elena, just drop it, okay? She stood abruptly, moving toward the window with her mug clutched in both hands. Forget I said anything. Adrian stayed on the floor, surrounded by shelf pieces and instruction manuals, feeling like he'd missed something crucial. The apartment felt different now, smaller, the air thicker. He could see Elena's reflection in the window, her shoulders tight, her expression carefully neutral. I didn't mean to piss you off, he said quietly. You didn't. Then why does it feel like I did? She didn't answer immediately. Outside, the city stretched endlessly. Thousands of lit windows holding thousands of separate lives. From up here, it all looked peaceful, organized, nothing like the chaos it actually was. You didn't do anything wrong, Elena said finally. I'm just tired. Long day. It was a lie. They both knew it was a lie. But Adrian had learned over the years that pushing Elena when she wanted to retreat only made things worse. She'd talk when she was ready, or she wouldn't, and they'd pretend the moment never happened. He turned back to the shelf, picking up pieces without really seeing them. The comfortable atmosphere from earlier felt miles away now, replaced by something uncertain and fragile. They worked in silence for a while, the only sounds, the click of metal on metal, and the distant hum of traffic below. Adrian managed to get 2 brackets mounted before realizing they were crooked. Elena pointed this out with none of her earlier humor, just factual observation. Great, Adrian muttered, reaching for the screwdriver. Nothing like amateur hour. You tried. That's what they'll put on my tombstone. He tried. Better than he gave up. Is it though? Elena almost smiled. He saw it start before she caught it, pulled it back. Yes. They fell silent again. Adrian fixed the brackets, acutely aware of every movement, every breath. This weird tension was making him clumsy. He dropped screws twice and nearly put the level on backwards. Can I ask you something? Elena's voice came quiet, careful. Sure. Have you ever been in love? Really in love, not just thinking you should be? The question caught him off guard. He sat back on his heels, considering. I thought I was. With Mia's mom.
But looking back, he trailed off, trying to find words for something he'd never fully articulated. Looking back, I think I was in love with the idea of it, the relationship I wanted us to have, not the one we actually had. Do you regret it?
Not for a second. I got Mia. Everything else was worth it for that. But the relationship itself was a mistake from the start. We were wrong for each other in every way that mattered. I just didn't want to see it.
Elena nodded slowly, still facing the window. What about since then? What about it? Have you felt it? That thing you're looking for?
Adrian opened his mouth to say no, to give the easy answer, but something stopped him, because the truth was more complicated than that. The truth was that he felt something close to it almost every time he walked into this apartment, every time Elena called, every time they fell into their familiar rhythm. But that was different. That was friendship, wasn't it? I don't know, he said instead. Maybe I wouldn't recognize it if I did.
You would.
She turned to face him finally, and her expression was strange, sad and determined at once.
When it's real, you know. You can't pretend it away or rationalize it or ignore it. It's just there. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe, or regret. Maybe I am. Adrian's heart did something complicated in his chest. Elena,
we should finish this shelf. She moved back to the scattered pieces with sudden purpose. It's getting late, and you have Mia tomorrow. The deflection was obvious, but he let it happen. Right, yeah. They worked together to lift the main board, Elena holding it level while Adrian secured it to the brackets. It was an awkward angle. They had to stand close, her shoulder pressed against his chest, his arms reaching around her to access the screws.
This is ridiculous, Elena muttered. Who designed this? Probably someone Swedish and sadistic. Little to the left. No, my left. Is Adrian, that's down. I know what left means. Apparently not. Despite everything, he smiled. Even when things were weird between them, this part stayed the same, the bickering, the teamwork, the way they balanced each other out.
The shelf clicked into place with a satisfying sound. They both stepped back, admiring their work. It was crooked, definitely crooked, but it was up.
We did it, Elena said.
We did something. Not sure it qualifies as it.
It's perfect.
It's a disaster. It's perfectly disastrous. She bumped her shoulder against his, and just like that, some of the tension dissolved.
Thank you for coming over, for doing this even though it was stupid and pointless and you had better things to do.
I didn't have better things to do. You always have better things to do. But you come anyway. She looked up at him, and he was struck again by how rarely she let her guard down like this, how rarely anyone got to see Elena Carter as anything other than the polished, powerful businesswoman she'd constructed. Why? I told you, because you asked. That's still not a real answer.
Yes, it is. He held her gaze, feeling something shift in the air between them. You're important to me. This is important to me. That's all the reason I need.
Elena's breath caught. He heard it, saw her eyes widen slightly. The space between them felt suddenly charged, like the moment before lightning strikes.
Adrian became acutely aware of how close they were standing, how the light from the window caught the gold flecks in her brown eyes, how her lips parted like she was about to say something. The moment stretched, held, and then Elena's phone rang, shattering it completely. She jumped back like she'd been burned, fumbling for her phone. Sorry, I have to... It might be... Take it, Adrian said, his voice rougher than intended. She answered, walking toward her bedroom for privacy. Adrian stayed in the kitchen, staring at their crooked shelf, his heart pounding for reasons he didn't want to examine. What the hell was that? He'd been in Elena's apartment hundreds of times. They'd been close before, closer than that even. But something about tonight felt different, dangerous, like they were balanced on the edge of something neither of them could take back. His phone buzzed. Mia's grandmother, sending a photo of Mia asleep with a book on her chest. The sight of his daughter, peaceful, safe, loved, pulled him back to reality. This was his life. Single dad. Shift worker. Guy who couldn't make relationships work because he was too damaged or too picky or too something. Elena was his best friend. The one constant good thing in his life aside from Mia. He couldn't screw that up by reading into moments that probably meant nothing. Elena returned, her phone clutched in her hand, her mask firmly back in place.
That was Tokyo. I need to send some files before their market opens. Right. Yeah. I should probably go anyway. You don't have to. It's late. You've got work. I've got Mia in the morning. He gathered his jacket, suddenly desperate to be out of this apartment, away from whatever was happening in his chest. Same time next week? Bad coffee and questionable life choices? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's a date. The word hung between them. Figure of speech, they both said at the same time, then laughed, awkward and too loud. Adrian moved toward the door, Elena following. In the hallway, he turned back, meaning to say goodnight, and found her closer than expected. Close enough to see the uncertainty in her eyes, the way her hand was clenched at her side like she was physically restraining herself. Adrian, she said quietly, that thing you said earlier, about not knowing what you're looking for? Yeah? I hope you figure it out. You deserve to be happy. There was something in her voice, something raw and honest that made his throat tight. So do you. Maybe. She reached out, squeezed his arm briefly. Drive safe. Always do. He made it to the elevator, pressed the button, waited. Behind him, he heard Elena's door close with a soft click. The elevator arrived, doors sliding open with a mechanical ding. Adrian stepped inside, watched the doors close, and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. His reflection stared back at him from the polished metal. Tired, confused, 32 years old, and no closer to having his life figured out than he'd been at 22. The elevator descended, carrying him away from the 30th floor, from Elena's pristine apartment, from whatever the hell had almost happened in that kitchen. His phone buzzed again. Another photo from Mia's grandmother. Then a text from Jessica, asking if he wanted to talk about things. He stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. Adrian stepped out into the marble lobby, nodded at the night security guard, and walked out into the cool evening air. His truck was where he'd left it, looking shabby and out of place among the luxury cars in the parking garage. He climbed in, started the engine, and sat there for a moment, not quite ready to drive. Through the windshield, he could see Elena's building stretching toward the sky, her apartment somewhere up there in all those lit windows. Was she watching? Could she see his truck from 30 floors up? Probably not. And even if she could, what would it matter? Adrian put the truck in reverse, backed out of the spot, and headed home. The drive took 40 minutes, traffic light this late. He spent most of it trying not to think about Elena's question. Have you ever been in love? And the way his answer had felt incomplete even as he said it. His apartment was dark when he arrived, quiet in the way that only happened when Mia was gone. He moved through the familiar rooms, picking up toys, straightening cushions, trying to burn off the restless energy humming under his skin. On the coffee table sat a drawing Mia had made last week. Her and Adrian, holding hands, both of them smiling. She'd given everyone big round heads and stick-figure bodies, but she'd gotten his hair right, that stubborn piece that always stuck up in the back. He picked up the drawing, carrying it to the kitchen where he added it to the collection on the fridge. Dozens of Mia's drawings, held up with magnets, a chronicle of her childhood in crayon and marker. This was real. This was what mattered, not whatever confusing thing was happening with Elena. Adrian made himself a real cup of coffee, the good kind, nothing like the disaster Elena produced, and settled on the couch with his phone. 3 missed calls from his mother, a text from his boss about picking up extra shifts, an email about Mia's upcoming parent-teacher conference. Nothing from Elena. He told himself he wasn't disappointed. The coffee was good, strong, and black the way he liked it. He drank it slowly, staring at nothing, thinking about crooked shelves and the way Elena's perfume lingered even after she'd moved away. His phone buzzed, finally. But it wasn't Elena, it was Jessica again. Can we please talk? I don't understand what happened. Adrian stared at the message, guilt twisting in his stomach. She deserved better than this, better than his half-hearted attention, his constant distraction, his inability to commit to anything that didn't feel exactly right. He started to type a response, deleted it, started again. I'm sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm just not in the right place for this. It was cowardly and vague, but it was honest. He hit send before he could overthink it. Her response came quickly. Is there someone else? Adrian looked at the question for a long time. Was there? Finally, he typed, "It's complicated." That's a yes. It's not like that. Then what's it like? He didn't have an answer for that. Didn't know how to explain that the person taking up space in his head was someone he'd never even kissed, never dated, never crossed that line with despite 1,000 opportunities. "I'm sorry," he typed again. "You deserve someone who's all in. That's not me." There was a long pause, then, "Whoever she is, I hope she's worth it." The conversation ended there. Adrian set his phone down, feeling like garbage and relieved at the same time. The apartment was too quiet. He turned on the TV, some late-night show he wasn't really watching, just for the noise. On screen, people laughed at jokes he wasn't hearing, their problems neatly resolved in 22 minutes. His phone buzzed one more time. Elena. His heart kicked against his ribs as he opened the message. "That shelf is definitely crooked, but I'm keeping it anyway. Thanks for tonight." Simple. Friendly. Nothing heavy or loaded or significant. So why did reading it make his chest ache? Adrian typed back, "You're welcome. Same time next week?" The response came immediately. Always. He stared at that single word, at everything it implied: routine, consistency, the promise of her presence in his life stretching forward indefinitely. Always. When had Elena become his always? Adrian set his phone aside, scrubbing his hands over his face. He was too tired for this kind of introspection, too emotionally drained to untangle whatever knot was forming in his chest. Tomorrow he'd pick up Mia. They'd go to the park. He'd make her favorite breakfast and listen to her chatter about marine biology and whatever else had captured her 7-year-old imagination. He'd be present, focused, the dad she deserved. Tonight, though, he let himself sit in the confusion, in the unanswered questions, in the growing certainty that something fundamental had shifted in Elena's kitchen and he couldn't pretend it away. The TV droned on. His coffee went cold. Outside, the city hummed with distant traffic. And 30 floors above downtown, in an apartment that cost more than most people's houses, Elena Carter stood at her window, staring out at lights that could have been Adrian's truck, could have been anyone's, could have been nothing at all. She pressed her fingers to the glass, leaving prints that would fade by morning, and whispered words that no one would ever hear. "Maybe you should just marry me." The joke that wasn't a joke anymore. The line that had stopped being funny years ago, if it ever really had been. Below, the city glittered and gleamed, full of people searching for connection, for meaning, for someone who understood them without explanation. And in two separate spaces, two people who'd spent 8 years building something neither of them had named sat alone with the growing weight of what they'd been too careful to acknowledge. The shelf hung crooked on Elena's wall. Tomorrow, someone would offer to fix it. Tomorrow, she'd tell them to leave it alone. Tomorrow, everything would go back to normal. The careful distance, the practiced ease, the friendship that was both too much and not nearly enough. But tonight, in the space between midnight and morning, in the hollow quiet of separate homes, two people finally let themselves wonder, what if? What if the person you'd been searching for had been there all along? What if the greatest love story of your life was the one you'd been too afraid to see? What if maybe wasn't a joke at all? The questions hung unanswered. The night stretched on. And somewhere in the space between them, something inevitable began to build, patient, persistent, impossible to ignore. But that reckoning would wait for another day, another installation project, another moment when the mask slipped and the truth became too loud to deny. For now, the shelf stayed crooked, and two people who fit together perfectly pretended they were just friends. The crooked shelf stayed on Elena's wall for 6 days before Adrian saw it again. 6 days of normal, or what passed for normal between them. Text messages about nothing important. A phone call where Elena complained about a hostile board meeting and Adrian listened while assembling Mia's new bookshelf. The irony not lost on him. Their usual Thursday lunch got canceled when Elena had to fly to Seattle for an acquisition, and Adrian told himself the disappointment he felt was proportional to missing any friend's company. He was lying, and he knew it. By the time Thursday rolled around again, Adrian had almost convinced himself that the weird tension from the previous week had been his imagination. Stress. Exhaustion. The post-breakup spiral making him read meaning into moments that didn't have any. Then he walked into Elena's apartment and saw the shelf, still crooked, now holding 3 books and a small succulent that looked half dead. and everything came rushing back. You actually put things on it, he said, closing the door behind him. Elena looked up from her laptop, glasses perched on her nose, hair pulled back in a messy knot. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, the kind of casual he rarely saw on her. Why wouldn't I? Because it's a disaster. I thought you'd take it down the second I left. It's not that bad. Elena, it's objectively crooked. So? She closed her laptop, stretching in a way that made her spine crack audibly. It holds books. That's all a shelf needs to do. Adrian set down the Chinese takeout he'd brought, her favorite, from the place downtown that she claimed to hate but always ate anyway. You have standards, high ones. This doesn't meet them. Maybe my standards are changing. Something in her tone made him look at her more closely. She seemed tired, shadows under her eyes that makeup usually hid. The Seattle trip had probably been brutal. They always were when acquisitions were involved. Rough week? He asked. You have no idea. She stood, moving to the kitchen for plates. The Seattle deal fell through. 3 months of negotiations and they backed out at the last minute. That sucks. It's more than that. It's a setback we can't afford. The board is already questioning my strategy, and this just gave them ammunition. She pulled down plates with more force than necessary. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to just walk away from all of it. You'd be bored in a week. Maybe. Or maybe I'd finally figure out what I actually want instead of what I'm supposed to want. Adrian leaned against the counter, watching her move around the kitchen with sharp, frustrated energy. You could, walk away. You've got enough money to live 10 lifetimes. It's not about the money. I know. It's about proving... She stopped, pressing her palms flat on the counter. I don't know what it's about anymore. Proving I'm more than they said I'd be? Proving I didn't need them? It all feels stupid when I say it out loud. It's not stupid, isn't it? I'm 30 years old, Adrian. I've spent the last decade building an empire. And for what? So I can sit in my expensive apartment alone every night? The vulnerability in her voice caught him off guard. Elena didn't do this, didn't crack open and show the raw parts underneath. She was controlled, measured, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. You're not alone, he said quietly. You've got people. I've got employees, business associates, people who want something from me. You've got me. She looked up, and the expression on her face made his chest tight. Do I? What kind of question is that? An honest one. She crossed her arms, defensive now. Everyone leaves eventually, Adrian. It's just a matter of time. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. I mean it. He moved closer, wanting her to see the truth in his face. Elena, I've been showing up for 8 years. What makes you think I'd stop now? Because people do. They get tired of my schedule, my work, the fact that I can't just turn it off and be normal. They meet someone easier, someone who doesn't come with all this baggage, and they leave. I'm not other people. I know. Her voice cracked slightly. That's what scares me. The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. Adrian felt his pulse quicken, that same dangerous awareness from last week flooding back. Why does that scare you? He asked. Elena looked away, jaw clenched. Can we just eat? I'm starving and this conversation is depressing. It was a deflection, obvious and deliberate. Adrian should have let it go. Should have grabbed the food, made a joke, steered them back to safer ground. Instead, he said, we need to talk about what happened last week. Nothing happened last week. Something did. You know it did. We installed a shelf. We had coffee. You went home, that's all. Elena, I don't want to do this. She moved past him, putting distance between them. Can we please just have one normal evening? I had a terrible week. I'm exhausted. And I really don't want to analyze every moment of our friendship like it means something it doesn't. The words stung more than they should have. So that's what we're doing? Pretending? There's nothing to pretend about. Then why won't you look at me? She spun around and the fire in her eyes took his breath away. Because if I look at you right now, I'm going to say something I can't take back, and I'm not ready for that. So please, Adrian, can we just eat the damn Chinese food and watch something mindless and be whatever the hell we've always been? They stared at each other across the kitchen, the air crackling with everything unsaid. Adrian could feel his heart pounding, could see the way Elena's hands were shaking slightly, could sense they were standing on the edge of something that would change everything. And he wasn't ready either. Okay, he said finally. Yeah, let's eat. The tension didn't disappear, but it shifted. Still there, just under the surface, but manageable. They moved around each other carefully, plating food, grabbing drinks, settling on the couch with practiced ease. Elena put on some cooking competition show she claimed to find soothing. Adrian stretched out on his usual end of the couch, and she curled up on hers. And for a while it almost felt normal. Almost. So, Elena said during a commercial break, how's Mia? Currently obsessed with outer space, the marine biology phase lasted exactly 2 weeks. What happened? She watched a documentary about black holes and decided the ocean wasn't interesting anymore. That's fair, black holes are pretty cool. She asked me to explain quantum physics last night. She's 7. Elena smiled, real and warm. What did you tell her? That some things are magic until we're old enough to understand them, and quantum physics might be magic forever. That's actually pretty good. I'm winging this whole parenting thing, but sometimes I get lucky. You're not winging it. You're great with her. You have to say that. You're contractually obligated as my friend. I don't have to say anything. I choose to say you're a good dad because it's true. She picked at her noodles, not quite meeting his eyes. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She's the only thing I haven't completely screwed up.
You haven't screwed up anything. I've screwed up plenty. Every relationship I've tried to have, for starters. Elena went very still. Not every relationship is meant to work. Apparently none of mine are. That's not true. Name one that didn't crash and burn. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly he almost missed it. Ours. Adrian's breath caught. That's different. Why? Because He stopped, realizing he didn't know how to finish that sentence. Because we're friends? Because we've never crossed that line? Because I'm too scared to risk what we have? Because we're what? Elena pressed. I don't know. We just are. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. On the TV, someone's souffle collapsed. The studio audience made sympathetic noises. Elena set down her food, turning to face him fully. Can I ask you something? Adrian's stomach dropped. Sure. That night last week, when you talked about Jessica, you said nothing felt right with her. What did you mean? Exactly what I said. It was fine, but it wasn't. He struggled for words. It wasn't enough. Enough for what? I don't know. Something more than just going through the motions. What does more look like to you? He met her eyes, and the intensity there nearly undid him. Why are you asking me this? Because I'm trying to understand. You keep dating people and pushing them away, and I'm trying to figure out what you're actually looking for. What if I don't know? I think you do. I think you're just afraid to admit it. Adrian set down his own food, his appetite gone. What do you want me to say, Elena? I want you to be honest. About what? About why nothing works. About what's really going on in your head when you sabotage every relationship you start. I don't sabotage. Yes, you do. Every single time. And I'm starting to think it's because you're comparing everyone to something that already exists. His heart was racing now. You said that before, that I'm chasing something that doesn't exist. I was wrong. She leaned forward, and he could smell her perfume, could see the gold flecks in her eyes. It does exist. You're just not letting yourself see it. Elena, when was the last time you felt completely yourself with someone? When was the last time you didn't have to perform or pretend or try to be what they needed? The answer was immediate and terrifying. Every time I'm with you. But he couldn't say that, couldn't cross that line. Because if he did, and it went wrong, he'd lose the one person who actually understood him. I should go, he said instead, standing abruptly. Adrian, wait. I can't do this right now. He grabbed his jacket, desperate for escape. I'm sorry. I need to think. About what? Everything. Nothing. I don't know. He was at the door now, hand on the knob. I'll call you. That's what you said to Jessica. He froze. What? That's what you told her. I'll call you, right before you cut her loose. Elena stood, arms wrapped around herself. Is that what you're doing? Cutting me loose? That's not.
He couldn't find words, couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the panic rising in his throat. We're friends, Elena. That's different. Is it? Yes. Then why are you running? I'm not running, You're terrified. I can see it on your face. Of course I'm terrified. The words burst out before he could stop them. You're asking me to... I don't even know what you're asking me to do, but whatever it is, it's going to ruin everything, and I can't lose you. I can't. Elena took a step closer. What if you're wrong? About what? About it ruining everything. What if it's the opposite? Or what if it's exactly what I think, and we blow up 8 years of friendship because we couldn't just leave well enough alone? Is this well enough for you? Her voice rose, frustration bleeding through. Watching you date people you don't care about while I sit here and... She stopped abruptly, pressing her hand to her mouth like she could physically push the words back in. Adrian's world tilted. While you what? Nothing. Forget it. Elena, finish the sentence. No. Please. Why? So you can panic more, so you can run away faster. I'm not running away. You're literally standing in the doorway with your jacket on. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. The tension that had been building for weeks, maybe years, pressed down like a physical weight. I need you to be honest with me, Adrian said quietly. Right now. What were you going to say? Elena's jaw clenched. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Why? Because you matter to me. Everything about you matters to me. He took a step back into the apartment, letting the door close. So please, just say it. She looked at him for a long moment, something breaking in her expression. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. While I watch you date people you don't love, and pretend it doesn't kill me. The world went silent. Adrian heard the words, processed them, felt them rearrange everything he thought he knew. What? You asked for honesty. Elena's laugh was bitter, broken. There it is. You... He couldn't finish, couldn't make his brain work. I'm in love with you. Have been for years, and I have watched you go through relationship after relationship, hoping you'd figure it out, hoping you'd see what's been right in front of you this whole time. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. But you don't. You just keep looking everywhere except at me. Adrian felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. I had no idea. Of course you didn't. I made sure of it. She turned away, shoulders rigid. I couldn't risk losing you, so I stayed quiet and watched you chase after everyone else, and told myself it was enough just to be your friend. Elena, but it's not enough. Not anymore. And I'm tired of pretending it is. He stood frozen, mind racing through years of interactions, looking for signs he'd missed. And once he started looking, he saw them everywhere. The way she always made time for him no matter how busy she was. The way she remembered every small detail about his life. The way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. How had he been so blind? Say something, Elena said, still not looking at him. Anything. Adrian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. What could he say? That he'd been an idiot? That he'd spent years searching for something he already had? That the reason nobody else felt right was because they weren't her? I need to think, he finally managed. Elena flinched like he'd slapped her. Right. Of course. That's not... This is a lot. You should go. Her voice was flat now, carefully controlled. Like you wanted to. I don't want to leave like this. Please just go, Adrian. I can't. I need you to go. He wanted to argue, to stay, to fix whatever he'd just broken. But the rigid set of her shoulders told him she was barely holding it together, and the last thing she needed was him standing there stammering like an idiot. Okay, he said quietly. I'll go, but we're going to talk about this. Sure. I mean it. Whatever you need to tell yourself. The dismissal stung. He hesitated at the door one more time, looking back at her standing alone in her expensive apartment, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. For what it's worth, he said, you could never lose me, no matter what. She didn't respond. Didn't even acknowledge he'd spoken. Adrian left, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded deafening in the silence. The elevator ride down felt like drowning. 30 floors of processing, of his mind replaying every moment, every interaction, seeing them all through a completely different lens. The night he'd driven through a storm because she'd called, voice small and scared, saying she couldn't be alone. The way she always knew when he needed to talk before he did. The 1,000 small ways she'd woven herself into his life until he couldn't imagine it without her. And he'd been so focused on finding something that felt right that he'd completely missed the person who'd felt right all along. The elevator doors opened. Adrian walked through the lobby in a daze, past the security guard who offered a friendly nod, out into the night air that did nothing to clear his head. His truck sat in the parking garage, and he climbed in automatically, muscle memory taking over. He sat there for a long moment, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. For a wild second, he thought it might be Elena, but it was just his mom asking about weekend plans with Mia. He typed a response he wouldn't remember later, then sat back, closing his eyes. "I'm in love with you. Have been for years." The words echoed in his head, impossible to ignore, impossible to dismiss. And underneath the shock, underneath the panic, was something else. Something that had been there so long he'd stopped noticing it, like background music you only hear when it stops. Relief. Adrian's eyes snapped open. That's what he'd felt in that split second before the panic set in. Relief. Like some part of him had been waiting for her to say it, had known it all along but needed to hear it out loud. He thought about Jessica, about all the others before her, the pattern Elena had called him on, starting well, then pulling away when it didn't feel right. He'd thought he was being honest with himself, refusing to settle. But what if he'd just been waiting for something he already had but was too scared to reach for? His phone rang. Elena's name lit up the screen, and his heart jumped into his throat. He answered immediately. "Hello?" Silence on the other end. Then a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," Elena said. "I shouldn't have. That wasn't fair to you." "You have nothing to apologize for." "I do. I put you in an impossible position, and that was selfish." "Elena, can we forget I said anything? Go back to normal?" "Is that what you want?" Another silence. "What I want doesn't matter." "Yes, it does." "Adrian, please, I can't do this right now. I just called to. I don't know why I called." She sounded exhausted, defeated. "I should let you go." "Wait." He gripped the phone tighter. "I need to figure some things out. Can you give me time to do that?" "You don't owe me anything." "That's not what I asked." She was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up. Then, "How much time?" "I don't know. A few days? A week maybe. I need to sort through my head." "Okay. But don't disappear on me, please." "I won't. Promise me." "I promise." A pause. "Adrian?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you figure out, whatever you decide, I meant what I said. You matter to me. That doesn't change." His throat went tight. "You matter to me too, more than you know. I'm starting to think I don't know much of anything. That makes two of us." A small, sad laugh. "Good night, Adrian." "Good night." The line went dead. Adrian sat in his truck, phone still pressed to his ear, feeling like his entire world had shifted 6 inches to the left. He started the engine, pulled out of the garage, and drove home through streets that suddenly felt unfamiliar. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. Like someone had changed one fundamental rule of physics, and now gravity worked differently. His apartment was still empty when he got there. Mia wouldn't be back until tomorrow afternoon. The silence felt oppressive now, full of questions he didn't have answers to. Adrian went through the motions: shower, clean clothes, the mindless routine of getting ready for bed. But his brain wouldn't shut off. It kept circling back to Elena's face when she'd admitted the truth, to the years of friendship he was suddenly seeing from a completely different angle. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and let himself think about it. Really think about it, without the panic, without the fear. What would it be like to be with Elena? Not as friends, but as something more. The images came easily, probably because he'd been imagining them longer than he'd let himself admit. Waking up next to her, kissing her goodnight, being able to reach for her hand without second-guessing the gesture, all the casual intimacies of a relationship, but with someone who already knew him better than anyone, someone who'd seen him at his worst and stayed anyway, someone who made him feel like himself, The best version of himself, without trying.
Someone who, if he was being honest, he'd been a little bit in love with for a very long time. The realization settled over him slowly, like sunrise. Gradual, then all at once. That's what had been missing with everyone else. Not some mythical perfect connection, not effortless compatibility, just Elena. The specific way she laughed, the particular shade of her eyes, the exact sound of her voice when she called him an idiot for forgetting to eat lunch again.
He'd been comparing everyone to her without realizing that's what he was doing. Adrian sat up, heart pounding. He should call her, should go back to her apartment right now and tell her what? That he loved her? He did. He knew that now with absolute certainty. But love wasn't the question. The question was whether he was brave enough to risk everything they had for the possibility of something more. Because if it went wrong, if they tried and failed and couldn't find their way back, he wouldn't just lose a girlfriend. He'd lose his best friend. The person who understood him better than anyone. The constant in his chaotic life. Could he survive that? His phone sat on the nightstand, tempting. One call, one conversation. That's all it would take. But Elena had asked for time, and he'd asked for the same. Rushing this would be a mistake. They both needed to be sure. Adrian lay back down, but sleep felt impossible. His mind kept racing, replaying conversations, reimagining moments, reconstructing their entire friendship through this new lens. The night they met at some mutual friend's party, neither of them wanted to attend. They'd ended up in the kitchen, hiding from the crowd, talking about everything and nothing until the host kicked them out at 3 a.m. Their first lunch together, Elena in a power suit fresh from a meeting, Adrian in his work clothes covered in drywall dust. She'd looked at him like he was the most interesting person in the room, not the janitor who'd wandered in by mistake. The time Mia's mom left, and Adrian had fallen apart, and Elena had shown up at his door with groceries and gentle silence, staying until he could breathe again. 1,000 small moments, each one meaningful, each one adding up to something he'd been too blind to see. His phone buzzed, a text from Elena. "Can't sleep either?" Adrian smiled despite everything. "No, you?" "Too much in my head." "Same. Are you okay?" The question made his chest ache. Even now, even after everything, she was checking on him. "I will be," he typed back. "You?" "I don't know yet." "That's fair?" A pause, then, "I really am sorry for dumping all of that on you. Stop apologizing. I just don't want things to be weird between us. Things are already weird, have been for a while if I'm being honest." "Since when?" Adrian thought about it. "Probably since the night you called me at 2 a.m. because you couldn't sleep and needed someone to talk to about that documentary on deep-sea creatures. That was 3 years ago." "Yeah. You're saying things have been weird for 3 years and you didn't mention it?" "I'm saying I've been ignoring signs for 3 years because I'm an idiot." Another pause. Longer this time. "What signs?" Elena asked. Adrian stared at the message, heart hammering. This was it. The moment where he could either retreat to safety or take the leap. He thought about Mia, about the lessons he tried to teach her. Be brave, be honest. Don't let fear make your decisions. "The way I feel when I'm with you," he typed. "The way I feel when I'm not with you. The way nobody else has ever measured up. And I couldn't figure out why. Adrian, the way I look for your car in parking lots. The way my day feels incomplete if we don't talk. The way you're the first person I want to tell when anything happens, good or bad." His fingers were shaking now, but he kept typing. "The way I've been falling in love with you so gradually, I didn't notice until you said it first, and suddenly everything made sense." He hit send before he could second guess it, then sat frozen, staring at the screen. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "You're falling in love with me?" "No. Past tense, I've already fallen. I just didn't realize I'd hit the ground until tonight." The dots appeared and stayed there for what felt like an eternity. Then his phone rang. Adrian answered, pulse racing. "Hey!" "Say it again." Elena's voice was rough, thick with emotion. "Please. I'm in love with you, have been for longer than I knew, and I'm terrified of screwing this up, but I'm more terrified of pretending I'm not." He heard her breath hitch, heard something that might have been a sob or a laugh, or both. "Where are you?" she asked. "Home. Where are you?"
Getting dressed. Why? Because I'm coming over. Elena, it's almost midnight. I don't care. I need to see you. Is that okay? Adrian was already getting out of bed. Yes, come over. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Drive safe. I will. A pause. Adrian? Yeah? I'm scared too. I know. But I'm more scared of not trying. Me too. She hung up. Adrian stood in his bedroom, phone in hand, feeling like he'd just stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if he'd fall or fly. 30 minutes. He had 30 minutes to figure out what the hell he was going to say when she got here. He cleaned up quickly. The apartment wasn't terrible, but it wasn't Elena's pristine space either. Toys got shoved into bins, dishes went in the sink. He changed into clean clothes that didn't look like he'd slept in them. 25 minutes. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He made coffee, then remembered Elena hated his coffee. He switched to tea, then realized he was out. Water. Everyone drank water. 20 minutes. What was he doing? They just agreed to take time to think, and now she was driving across the city in the middle of the night because he'd had a moment of honesty he couldn't take back. But he didn't want to take it back. 15 minutes. His phone buzzed. Traffic's light. Be there in 10. Adrian's heart was trying to beat its way out of his chest. This was Elena. His Elena. The person who knew him better than anyone, who'd stood by him through everything, who'd become so essential to his life he couldn't remember what it felt like before her. And he was in love with her. The realization didn't feel new anymore. It felt obvious. Like something that had always been true, waiting for him to notice. 10 minutes became 7, then 5. Then headlights were pulling into his parking lot, and a car door was closing, and footsteps were climbing the stairs to his second-floor apartment. Adrian opened the door before she could knock. Elena stood on his doorstep, hair still damp from a shower, wearing jeans and a sweater he recognized from 2 winters ago. No makeup, no armor, just her, breathless and beautiful and terrified. Hi, she said. Hi. They stared at each other across the threshold. Can I? She gestured inside. Yeah, sorry, come in. She stepped past him, and he caught that familiar scent of her perfume mixed with something softer. Her shampoo, maybe. The apartment suddenly felt smaller with her in it, the air thicker. Elena turned to face him, wrapping her arms around herself in that defensive gesture he'd seen earlier. I was going to wait, give you space like I said I would. What changed? You told me you loved me, and I couldn't just stay home and pretend that was something I could process over text. I probably shouldn't have said it like that. No, you should have. I'm glad you did. She took a shaky breath. I've waited so long to hear you say it, and now I need to know if you meant it or if you were just, I don't know, caught up in the moment. Adrian closed the distance between them in 2 steps. I meant it. Every word. You're sure? Because, Adrian, I can't. If we do this and it's not real for you, if you're just confused or responding to me saying it first, I can't come back from that. It's real. He wanted to touch her, to pull her close, but he kept his hands at his sides. I know the timing is terrible, and I know I'm probably the last person who should be trusted with something like this, but it's real. Tears spilled down her cheeks. How long? I don't know. Years, maybe? I just didn't let myself see it. Why not? Because you're my best friend, and losing you would destroy me. It seemed safer to ignore it. And now? Now I think ignoring it is the most dangerous thing I could do. He finally let himself reach for her, wiping away her tears with his thumb. Now I think we've been heading here since the night we met, and I've been too scared to admit it. Elena leaned into his touch, eyes closing. What if we mess this up? What if we don't? Adrian, I know the risks. I know what we could lose. But I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you, and I'm tired of pretending that's not important. She opened her eyes, searching his face. What are we doing? I don't know, but I think we should figure it out together. That's not much of a plan. It's all I've got. A laugh bubbled out of her, wet and shaky but real. We're going to be terrible at this. Probably. We're both damaged and scared, and we have no idea what we're doing. Completely clueless. So why does this feel right? Adrian smiled, pulling her closer until her forehead rested against his chest. Because it's us. It's always been us.
We just took the long way around to seeing it. Elena's arms came around him, holding tight, and something in Adrian's chest unlocked. This was what had been missing. This exact feeling, Elena in his arms, no barriers between them, no pretending they were just friends. They stood like that for a long time, breathing together, neither of them ready to move or speak or break whatever spell they'd fallen under. Finally, Elena pulled back just enough to look up at him. "So what now?" "Now," Adrian said softly, "we stop running." "Just like that?" "Just like that." She bit her lip, uncertainty flickering across her face. "I'm still scared." "Me too. But you're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Elena nodded slowly, something resolving in her expression. Okay, we can do this." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She managed a small smile. "We've done harder things." "Have we, though?" "Probably not, but we'll figure it out." "Together?" "Together." The word felt like a promise, like a beginning. Adrian cupped her face in his hands, thumbs tracing her cheekbones, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she rose on her toes, closing the distance between them until their lips were almost touching. "Is this okay?" she whispered. "More than okay." "Then stop talking and kiss me." So he did, and the world shifted into place. The kiss wasn't what Adrian expected. He'd imagined this moment before, though he'd never let himself dwell on it for long. And in those brief fantasies, it had been smooth, cinematic, perfectly choreographed. But this was real, and real was messier. Their noses bumped first, and Elena made a small sound that was half laugh, half nerves. Adrian adjusted the angle, and then their lips met, and everything else fell away. It wasn't fireworks, it was recognition. Like coming home after a long trip and finding everything exactly where it should be. Like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. Like something that had been waiting to happen for so long that now that it was, it felt inevitable. Elena's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. Adrian wrapped his arms around her waist, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, 8 years of want compressed into this single moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena looked up at him with wide eyes. "Oh," she said. "Yeah. That was, I know." She laughed, the sound shaky. "We're idiots. We could have been doing that for years." "We weren't ready for years. And we're ready now?" Adrian brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, marveling at the fact that he could do that now. Just touch her because he wanted to. "I think we have to be. I don't think I can go back to pretending after that." "Good." Elena pulled him down for another kiss, slower this time, deliberate. When she pulled back, her smile was genuine. "Because I'm done pretending too." They moved to the couch, and it should have felt different, this new configuration, this shift from friends to something more. But it didn't. Elena tucked herself against his side the way she'd done 100 times before, and Adrian's arm came around her shoulders automatically, and it was familiar and new at the same time. "So," Elena said after a while, "what do we do now?" "I have no idea." "That's not reassuring." "Would you prefer I lie and pretend I have a plan?" "Little bit, yeah." Adrian laughed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head because he could now. "Okay, here's the plan. We figure this out as we go. We're honest with each other. We don't let fear make our decisions." "That's still not much of a plan." "It's better than nothing." Elena was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "What about Mia?" The question sobered him. "What about her?" "She's 7. This is going to affect her too. We can't just... I don't want to confuse her or make things complicated." "You wouldn't. She loves you. As her dad's friend. This is different." "Is it though? You're already in her life. You're already important to her. The only thing that changes is the label." "Adrian, labels matter, especially to kids." He knew she was right, but the thought of pulling back now, of hiding this from Mia, felt wrong. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying we should be careful. Take this slow with her. Make sure this is real and stable before we change her entire understanding of who I am to her." "It is real." "We've been together for approximately 45 minutes. Let's maybe get past the first week before we start restructuring a 7-year-old's family dynamics. Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to say that he knew this was different, that he'd never been more certain of anything. But Elena was being practical, and someone had to be. Okay, he said finally. We'll take it slow with Mia, but not because I have doubts, because you're right, and she comes first. Thank you. But I'm not hiding this, Elena. I'm not going to pretend we're just friends when we're not anymore. I'm not asking you to hide it, just to be thoughtful about how we navigate it. Fair enough. They fell quiet again. The only sound the distant hum of traffic and the occasional creak of the building settling. Adrian's mind was still racing, processing the fact that Elena Carter, brilliant, beautiful, completely out of his league Elena, was in his arms, and he was allowed to keep her there. What are you thinking? Elena asked softly. That I can't believe this is real. It's real. How do you know? Because I've spent years imagining what this would feel like, and the reality is even better. Adrian tightened his hold on her. You really have been in love with me for that long? Longer, probably. I don't know when it started. It was gradual. One day you were just my friend, and then suddenly you were everything, and I had no idea how to deal with that. Why didn't you say something? For the same reason you didn't, because you were too important to risk losing. But you risked it tonight. Elena shifted so she could look at him. I had to. Watching you with Jessica, knowing you were going to find someone eventually and it wouldn't be me, I couldn't do it anymore. I thought if I told you, either you'd feel the same or you wouldn't, but at least I'd know. At least I could start trying to move on. And if I'd said I didn't feel the same, I would have lied and said I was joking. Then I would have gone home and probably cried for a week straight. The image made his chest ache. I'm sorry. For what? For making you wait. For being too blind to see what was right in front of me. You weren't blind. You were scared. So was I. We both were. She cupped his face in her hand. But we're here now. That's what matters. Adrian leaned into her touch, letting the truth of it settle over him. They were here. Together. After 8 years of dancing around it, they'd finally stopped running. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. His mom, asking if he wanted her to keep Mia for another day. Adrian stared at the message, an idea forming. What if we told her tomorrow, he said. Elena tensed slightly. Told who what? Mia. What if we told her tomorrow? Adrian, we literally just agreed to take it slow. I know, but hear me out. She's spending the night at my mom's. What if we picked her up together and we don't make it a big thing, but we're honest with her? You want to tell your 7-year-old daughter that we're dating less than 24 hours after we figured it out ourselves? When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane. Or it's honest. Mia's smart. She's going to notice something's different anyway. Why not just tell her the truth? Elena pulled away slightly, creating space between them. Because what if this doesn't work? What if we try this and it falls apart, and then we've told her we're together and we have to tell her we're not anymore? That's not going to happen. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Elena, I've dated enough people to know the difference between something that might work and something that will. This is the latter. You've known that for less than an hour. I've known it for years. I just didn't let myself see it. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. I understand being cautious. I do. But I also know that Mia's going to be part of this, whether we tell her now or in 3 months. She's my daughter. You're you. Those two parts of my life aren't separate, and I don't want to pretend they are. Elena looked down at their joined hands, conflict clear on her face. What would we even say to her? The truth. That we realized we care about each other as more than friends, and we're going to see where that goes. And when she asks questions we don't have answers to, we tell her we're figuring it out together. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. Elena bit her lip, and Adrian could see her working through scenarios, weighing risks, doing what she always did when facing a big decision. Finally, she looked up at him. If we do this, we do it right. We sit down with her, we're calm and clear, and we make sure she knows that no matter what happens with us, we both still care about her. Agreed. And if she's upset or confused, we don't push. We give her space to process. Of course. And if this blows up in our faces and traumatizes your child, you get to explain it to the therapist. Adrian grinned. Deal. Elena shook her head, but she was smiling too. I can't believe I'm agreeing to this. Welcome to life with me. It's mostly impulsive decisions and hoping for the best. That's terrifying. Yeah, but it's never boring. She laughed, and the sound eased some of the tension in the room. Adrian pulled her back against him, and she came willingly, settling into the spot that was apparently always meant to be hers. Tell me something, Elena said after a while. Anything. When did you know? Not when you admitted it to yourself tonight, but when did you actually know, even if you weren't ready to see it? Adrian thought about it, letting his mind drift back through years of friendship. You remember that night about 2 years ago when you called me because you'd had that nightmare and couldn't go back to sleep? The one about drowning? Yeah, you called at 2 in the morning and I drove over and we just sat on your balcony until sunrise, not really talking, just being. I remember. I knew then, watching the sun come up with you and thinking that there was nowhere else I'd rather be, that even though I was exhausted and had to work in 3 hours, sitting there with you was worth it. That's when I knew. Elena's breath hitched. That was 2 years ago. I know. And you didn't say anything. Because you were in the middle of that merger. Because the timing was terrible. Because I convinced myself it was just a moment of tiredness making me sentimental. He pressed another kiss to her hair. But it wasn't. It was the truth. And I spent 2 years ignoring it. I knew before that, Elena admitted quietly. Yeah? 5 years ago. You remember when Mia's mom left? Adrian's chest tightened. Unfortunately. You called me from the hospital. Mia had that stomach thing, and you were alone and terrified, and you needed someone. You came. Of course I came. And when I got there, you looked so lost. Like your entire world had just shifted and you didn't know which way was up anymore. She shifted to look at him. And I remember thinking that I would do anything to make that look go away. That I would stand between you and anything that tried to hurt you. That's when I knew it wasn't just friendship anymore. 5 years, Adrian said, the weight of it settling over him. 5 years of watching you date other people and pretending my heart wasn't breaking every single time. I'm sorry. Don't be. We both did what we thought we had to do to protect what we had. She smiled sadly. We just didn't realize we were protecting it from the best thing that could have happened to it. Adrian didn't have words for that, so he kissed her instead. Slow and deep, trying to pour 5 years of missed opportunities and 2 years of denial into it. When they broke apart, Elena's eyes were bright. We should probably sleep, she said, but made no move to leave. You could stay? She raised an eyebrow. Stay? On the couch, in the guest room. Wherever you're comfortable. I don't want you driving home this late. Adrian, it's barely 1 in the morning, so stay anyway. Elena studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but I need to borrow something to sleep in because I didn't exactly plan for a sleepover when I left my apartment. I think I can manage that. They untangled themselves from the couch, and Adrian led her to his bedroom, acutely aware of how different this felt from all the times Elena had been in his apartment before. He pulled out an old t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants that would be too big on her. Bathroom's there if you want to wash up, he said, suddenly awkward. Elena took the clothes, her fingers brushing his. Where are you sleeping? Couch is fine. That's ridiculous. It's your bed. You're my guest. I'm your girlfriend. The word hung in the air between them, new and strange and right. We can share a bed without it being weird. You sure? Adrian, we've fallen asleep on your couch together a dozen times. This isn't that different. It feels different. Because it is different, but that doesn't mean it has to be awkward. She stepped closer, rising on her toes to kiss him quickly. Unless you're not comfortable with it, then I'll take the couch and you can have your bed. No, yes, sharing is good, great, totally fine, Elena grinned. You're cute when you're flustered. I'm not flustered. You absolutely are. She disappeared into the bathroom, leaving Adrian standing in his bedroom, trying to remember how to breathe normally. This was Elena. He'd known her for 8 years. There was no reason to be nervous, except there was every reason because everything had changed and his brain hadn't quite caught up yet. He changed into sleep clothes, trying not to think about the fact that Elena was in his bathroom, wearing his shirt, about to sleep in his bed. When she emerged, hair down, face clean, swimming in his clothes, Adrian's heart did something complicated in his chest. "Stop looking at me like that," she said, but she was smiling. "Like what?" "Like I'm something precious you're afraid to break." "Maybe you are."
"I'm not. I'm just me." She crossed to the bed, pulling back the covers. "Same person I was this morning, just with a different label." "I don't think that's true." "No?" She climbed into bed, and Adrian tried not to think about all the implications of that simple action. "No. This morning you were my best friend. Tonight you're—" He stopped, searching for the right words. "I'm what?" "Everything," he said simply. "Everything I didn't know I was looking for."
Elena's expression softened. "Come here." Adrian got into bed beside her, and it should have felt strange, this new intimacy, this shift in their dynamic. But Elena curled into him like she'd done it 1,000 times before, her head on his chest, her arm across his waist, and it just felt right. "This okay?" she murmured. "More than okay." They lay in comfortable silence, Adrian's fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. Outside, the city was still alive, but inside his small apartment, everything was quiet and still and perfect. "Adrian?" Elena's voice was soft, already heavy with sleep. "Yeah?" "Thank you for not giving up on this. On us." "I should be thanking you. You're the one who was brave enough to say it first." "We were both brave, just at different moments." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." "That's one way to put it." She yawned, burrowing deeper into his side. "Night." "Good night, Elena." Within minutes, her breathing evened out, and Adrian knew she was asleep. He lay there, holding her, marveling at the series of events that had led to this moment. 24 hours ago, he'd been installing a crooked shelf and arguing about coffee. Now Elena was asleep in his arms, and everything he thought he knew about his life had been rewritten. Sleep didn't come easily. His mind was too active, too full of the enormity of what had happened. But eventually, exhaustion won, and Adrian drifted off with Elena's warmth against him and the scent of her shampoo filling his lungs. He woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the disorienting realization that he wasn't alone. For a second, panic flared. Then he remembered, and the panic transformed into something warm and solid. Elena was still asleep, her face peaceful in the morning light. Adrian let himself just look at her, this woman who'd been part of his life for so long, trying to reconcile the Elena he'd known with this new version, or maybe not new at all, just finally acknowledged. Her eyes opened slowly, focusing on him. A smile curved her lips. "Morning," she said, voice rough with sleep. "Morning. You're staring. You're beautiful." She laughed, hiding her face in his chest. "It's too early for lines like that." "It's not a line. It's the truth." Still too early. But she was smiling, and Adrian counted that as a win. They lay there for a while, neither of them quite ready to face the day and everything it would bring. Eventually, though, reality intruded in the form of Adrian's phone alarm. "What time are we getting Mia?" Elena asked. "Mom said any time after 10. Elena glanced at the clock. "It's 8:30. "Yeah." "So we have time." "We have time." She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. "Are you having second thoughts? About telling her? Are you?" "I asked first." Adrian reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "No second thoughts. Mild terror, maybe, but no doubts." "Mild terror? That's comforting." "I'm terrified of screwing this up, of saying the wrong thing or handling it badly or making her feel like her world is spinning out of control. So normal parent fears, then. Amplified by the fact that I'm essentially telling her that her dad is dating her favorite person, who isn't him." "I'm her favorite person?" "Don't fish for compliments. You know you are." Elena's smile was soft. "She's my favorite person who isn't you." "She's 7. So?" "She's smart and funny and kind. Those qualities don't have an age requirement." Adrian pulled her down for a kiss, slow and sweet. When they broke apart, Elena was flushed. "We should get up," she said, but made no move to leave the bed. "Probably. Make coffee. Eat breakfast. Prepare for the most awkward conversation of our lives." "When you put it like that, staying in bed sounds much better." "Adrian." "Fine. But for the record, I'm doing this under protest. They got up, and the morning routine should have felt awkward, sharing a bathroom, navigating the small kitchen together, the intimacy of domestic life. But they'd done versions of this before. Those mornings when Elena stayed over after late nights of talking, or when Adrian crashed at her place after helping with some project. The only difference now was the casual touches, the quick kisses, the way they moved around each other with new awareness. Adrian made coffee, the good kind, not Elena's disaster brew, and scrambled eggs while Elena sat at his small kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. It felt normal and surreal at the same time, this glimpse of what their lives could be like. I have 3 missed calls from my assistant, Elena said, not looking up. It's Saturday. She doesn't care. Neither do the board members who apparently need to talk to me about the Seattle situation. Do you need to go? She set down her phone, meeting his eyes. No, they can wait. Today is about us, about Mia. Work comes second. I don't want to mess up your schedule. Adrian, I just spent the night with you. I'm about to help you tell your daughter that we're together. I think we're a little past worrying about my schedule. He set a plate in front of her, then sat down with his own. Still, if you need to take calls or handle something, I don't. I need to be here. With you. She reached across the table, taking his hand. This is more important. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from years of knowing someone. Adrian found himself watching Elena, cataloging all the little details he'd noticed before, but could now appreciate differently. The way she always ate the edges of her eggs first, the small furrow between her brows when she was thinking, the unconscious hum of contentment when she took her first sip of coffee. What? She asked, catching him staring. Nothing. Just thinking. About? How long I've been watching you do that thing with your eggs without realizing it meant something. It doesn't mean anything. It's just how I eat. Everything about you means something. I just wasn't letting myself see it. Elena's expression softened. We really were idiots, weren't we? The biggest. But we're fixing it now. Yeah, we are. They finished breakfast, cleaned up together, and suddenly it was time. No more delaying, no more excuses. They needed to go pick up Mia and have the conversation that would either go smoothly or completely derail their day. Ready? Adrian asked, grabbing his keys. Elena took a deep breath. No, but let's do it anyway. The drive to his mother's house took 20 minutes, and they spent most of it in silence. Adrian's mind was racing with possible scenarios, trying to script what he'd say, how he'd explain this to a 7-year-old. Stop overthinking, Elena said, reading him like she always did. I'm not overthinking. You're gripping the steering wheel so hard your knuckles are white. Adrian forced himself to relax. What if she hates this? She won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Mia loves you and she loves me. The idea of us being together isn't going to upset her. It might confuse her. Then we'll unconfuse her. Kids are resilient, Adrian. You know that. He did know that. Had seen it firsthand when Mia's mother left, when his entire world imploded and his daughter had somehow weathered it better than he had. But this felt different, felt bigger somehow. They pulled up to his mother's house, a small ranch-style place in a quiet neighborhood. Before Adrian could turn off the engine, the front door burst open and Mia came running out, backpack bouncing. Daddy! She skidded to a stop when she saw Elena in the passenger seat. Elena, you're here too. Hey, kiddo, Elena said, getting out of the car. Mia launched herself at Elena, hugging her with the full-body enthusiasm only 7-year-olds could manage. I didn't know you were coming. Are we doing something fun? Are we going to the park? Can we get ice cream? Slow down, Adrian said, laughing. Let Elena breathe. I can't slow down. I had pancakes for breakfast and Grandma let me have extra syrup. Adrian shot his mother, who'd appeared in the doorway, an exasperated look. She just shrugged, grinning. We need to talk to you about something, Adrian said to Mia. Nothing bad, he added quickly, seeing her face start to fall. Just something important. Mia looked between them, curiosity replacing the initial worry. Okay, can we talk at home? I want to show you the drawing I made. Absolutely. They said goodbye to Adrian's mother, who gave him a knowing look that suggested she'd figured something out, but was keeping it to herself. The drive back was filled with Mia's chatter about her night, the movies she'd watched, the fort she'd built, the elaborate story she'd told about space explorers. Back at the apartment, Mia dumped her backpack and pulled out a piece of paper covered in crayon marks. Look, it's a black hole eating a star. That's amazing, Elena said, and meant it. I made one for you too. Mia dug through her bag again, producing another drawing. It's us at the museum. Elena took it, something in her expression shifting. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, one tall with messy hair labeled Daddy, one smaller with pigtails labeled Me, and one in the middle labeled Elena. They were all holding hands. This is beautiful, Mia. Thank you. You can put it on your fridge. That's where important things go. I definitely will. Adrian caught Elena's eye, seeing the same thing he was feeling. How do you tell a kid who already sees you as a unit that you're just now figuring out what she's known all along? Mia, he said gently, come sit with us for a minute. She bounced onto the couch between them, kicking her legs. Is this the important talk? Yeah, it is. Okay, I'm ready. Adrian glanced at Elena, who nodded encouragement. Here goes nothing. You know how Elena and I are really good friends, right? He started. Best friends, Mia corrected. Right, best friends. Well, sometimes when people are really good friends, they realize they want to be more than that. Mia tilted her head. More how? Like, Adrian struggled for the right words, like how Mommy and I used to be together. Except different because Elena and I have been friends for a long time first. You mean like boyfriend and girlfriend? Mia asked, matter of fact. Adrian blinked. Yeah, exactly like that. Okay. He waited for more reaction, but Mia just sat there, swinging her legs. That's it? Elena asked. Just okay? Yeah, can we have ice cream now? Adrian and Elena exchanged glances, both of them clearly expecting this to be more complicated. You're not confused or upset, Adrian pressed. Why would I be upset? I like Elena. You like Elena. Now you like each other in the boyfriend way. That's good, right? It's very good, Elena said softly. So, ice cream? Mia, we need to make sure you understand what this means, Adrian said. She sighed dramatically. It means Elena is going to be around more, and maybe she'll sleep over sometimes, and you'll probably be all gross and kissy like in movies. But that's okay because Elena is nice and she makes you smile, right? Adrian felt something tight in his chest loosen. Right, exactly right. Can we please get ice cream now? You said nothing bad, but you're making it feel bad by being all serious. Elena laughed, the sound breaking the tension in the room. Ice cream sounds perfect. Yes! Mia jumped off the couch. Can I get 2 scoops? Don't push it, Adrian said, but he was smiling. As Mia ran to get her shoes, Elena leaned into Adrian. That went better than expected. She's 7, and she handled that better than we did. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. Apparently, Mia came back, shoes on the wrong feet, but close enough. Ready! They piled into the car, Mia chattering about which flavors she wanted to try, and Adrian felt something shift in his chest. This was his life now. Elena in the passenger seat, Mia in the back, the 3 of them heading out for ice cream like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maybe it was. At the ice cream shop, Mia insisted on sitting between them, sharing bites of her cone with both of them, and telling them about her space documentary with the kind of detailed enthusiasm only a kid could manage. People passing by probably saw them as a family, and for the first time, Adrian didn't flinch at that assumption. You've got ice cream on your nose, Elena told Mia, reaching over with a napkin. You've got some too, Mia said, giggling. Do I? Elena touched her face, missing the spot entirely. Here. Adrian leaned in, wiping the corner of her mouth with his thumb. Their eyes met, and the moment stretched, warm and sweet. Ew, you guys are already being gross, Mia announced, but she was grinning. Sorry, kiddo, Adrian said. Not sorry at all. They finished their ice cream, walked through the park, spent the afternoon doing nothing important and everything that mattered. By the time they got home, Mia was yawning, sugar crash setting in. Nap time, Adrian declared. I'm not tired, Mia protested, even as her eyes drooped. Bed, now. She trudged to her room, and Adrian followed to tuck her in. When he came back out, Elena was standing by the window, looking out at the city with an expression he couldn't quite read. Hey, he said softly. You okay? She turned, and there were tears on her cheeks. She drew me holding hands with you both.
She's been seeing us as a family for who knows how long, and we were too blind to see what she saw. Adrian crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. We see it now. Do we? Because Adrian, watching you with her today, seeing how natural this all is, I'm terrified I'm going to screw it up. You won't. You can't know that.
Yes, I can.
Because you already know how to be there for her. You've been doing it for years. The only thing that's changed is the label. Elena pulled back to look at him. What if it changes everything? It won't. We won't let it. He cupped her face in his hands. We're in this together, remember? All three of us now. She nodded, fresh tears spilling over. I love you. I know it's too soon to say it again, but I do. I love you so much it scares me.
It's not too soon when it's been true for 5 years. He kissed her gently. I love you too, and we're going to figure this out. One day at a time, one crooked shelf at a time. Elena laughed through her tears. That shelf is never going to let us live it down, is it? Nope. It's part of our origin story now. We have an origin story. Apparently. She kissed him, soft and sweet, and Adrian thought about all the roads that had led them here, all the near misses, all the almosts, all the years of circling each other before finally landing in the same place at the same time. It wasn't perfect. They were both damaged, both scared, both figuring this out as they went. But it was real, and it was theirs. And that was enough. In her room, Mia slept peacefully, dreaming about black holes and distant stars. In the kitchen, a crooked shelf held books that would never be read but would stay there anyway. Proof that some things were worth keeping even when they were imperfect. And in the living room, two people who'd spent years denying what they felt finally let themselves believe that maybe, just maybe, the thing they'd been searching for had been there all along, waiting patiently for them to open their eyes and see it. The first month was harder than either of them expected. Not because the relationship itself was difficult. That part felt startlingly natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. But integrating their lives, merging Elena's high-pressure world with Adrian's grounded chaos, proved to be a learning curve neither of them had fully anticipated. It started small. Elena showed up at Adrian's apartment on a Tuesday night, still in her work clothes, makeup perfect, looking completely out of place in his small kitchen while he cooked spaghetti in a sauce-stained t-shirt. You don't have to dress down for me, he said, catching her eyeing her designer heels with something like regret. I know, but I feel ridiculous standing here like I'm about to chair a board meeting while you're making dinner in sweatpants. These are my good sweatpants. That's not helping your case. Adrian laughed, pulling her close despite her half-hearted protests about getting tomato sauce on her blouse. You could leave some clothes here. Make it easier for next time. Elena went still in his arms. That's a big step. Is it? You're here 4 nights a week anyway. That's different from having drawer space. How? She pulled back and he could see her working through it, trying to articulate something that probably didn't need to be said. Because drawer space means this is permanent, real, not just something we're trying out. Elena, I love you. I'm pretty sure we're past trying it out. I know, She stopped, frustrated. I don't want to move too fast and mess this up. We've known each other for 8 years, which is exactly why we can't afford to be careless now. Adrian turned back to the stove, stirring the sauce with more force than necessary. You're doing that thing again. What thing? The thing where you overthink every step forward because you're waiting for it to fall apart. I'm being cautious. You're being scared. Elena's jaw tightened. Maybe I am. Is that so wrong? No. But it means you don't trust this yet. Don't trust us. That's not fair, isn't it? He faced her again, and the hurt on her face made him immediately regret his tone. I'm sorry. That came out harsher than I meant. You're right, though. I am scared. She crossed her arms, defensive. Every relationship I've ever had has ended badly. Everyone leaves eventually. I'm just waiting for you to figure out that I'm too much work. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. Because I've already seen you at your worst. The nightmares, the impossible hours, the way you shut down when you're overwhelmed. And I'm still here. I've been here for 8 years, Elena. What makes you think I'd leave now? She looked away, blinking hard. Because now you're supposed to want the good parts, the easy parts. And I don't know if I have enough of those to offer. Adrian set down the spoon, crossing to her. Hey, look at me. She did, reluctantly. You want to know what the good parts are? They're you, showing up here after a 14-hour day because you missed us. They're the way you help Mia with her homework, even though you're exhausted. They're every small moment where you let me see the real you, not the polished version everyone else gets. He took her hands. Those are the parts I want. All of them, including the messy ones. What if messy is all I have? Then we'll be messy together.
Elena's laugh was wet, broken. We really are terrible at this. The worst. But we're getting better. She leaned into him, and Adrian wrapped his arms around her, feeling the tension slowly leave her body. They stood like that until the timer went off for the pasta, and Elena pulled back with a watery smile. I'll bring some clothes over this weekend, she said. Yeah? Yeah, but I'm not bringing my entire wardrobe, just a few things. That's all I'm asking. They ate dinner on his couch, legs tangled together, watching some cooking show Elena claimed was research for her terrible coffee. Mia was at her grandmother's again. Tuesday nights had become Adrian and Elena's designated alone time, and the apartment felt both too quiet and exactly right. I have to go to New York next week, Elena said during a commercial break. For how long? 3 days. Maybe 4 if the negotiations drag. Adrian tried to keep his face neutral. That's fine. We'll manage. You're upset. I'm not upset. Adrian, I can feel you tensing up. He sighed, setting down his fork. I'm not upset about the trip. We're still figuring this out, and it feels like every time we find a rhythm, something interrupts it. That's my life. You knew that going in. I did. I do. It's just an adjustment. Do you want me to turn it down? No. Absolutely not. This is your career, Elena. I would never ask you to compromise that. But it bothers you. It doesn't bother me. I just miss you when you're gone. She softened at that, reaching for his hand. I miss you too, every single time. Then maybe you should quit your job and become a full-time shelf installer. The pay is terrible, but the company is excellent. Elena laughed, the tension breaking. Tempting, but I think I'll stick with the empire building for now. Suit yourself. The rest of the evening passed easily, and when Elena left around 11, she had an early meeting, Adrian walked her to her car. They stood in the parking lot, neither quite ready to say goodnight. Thank you, Elena said. For what? For being patient with me, for understanding that I'm still learning how to do this. We both are. She kissed him, soft and lingering. I'll see you Thursday? Thursday. And call me when you land in New York. I will. Adrian watched her drive away, then headed back upstairs to an apartment that felt emptier without her. He cleaned up dinner, checked his phone for messages from his mom about Mia, and tried not to think about 4 days without seeing Elena. They'd been apart longer than that before, but somehow it felt different now, like every separation carried more weight. The week passed in fragments. Work was busy, a building renovation that kept going wrong in new and creative ways. Mia had a school project that required poster board and glitter, which somehow ended up everywhere despite Adrian's best efforts at containment. Elena called every night from New York, sounding exhausted and stressed, and Adrian listened while she vented about stubborn investors and contracts that kept hitting snags. I should be home Friday, she said on Wednesday night, Saturday at the latest. No rush. Handle what you need to handle. I miss Mia's bedtime stories, Adrian smiled. She misses them too. She made me read the Dragon book 3 times tonight and said I do the voices wrong. You do them wrong. Excuse me, my dragon voice is excellent. Your dragon voice sounds like you're gargling marbles. That's what dragons sound like. Elena's laugh was tired but genuine. I can't wait to come home. We can't wait either. Thursday brought unexpected complications. Adrian's boss called him in early for an emergency. Burst pipe, flooding, all hands needed. He called his mother to take Mia to school, texted Elena an apology for missing their scheduled call, and spent 12 hours trying to prevent a complete disaster. By the time he got home, it was past 9. His phone showed 6 missed calls from Elena and a string of increasingly worried texts. He called her back immediately. I'm so sorry. Work emergency. Are you okay? I was starting to think something happened. I'm fine. Just wet and tired and probably smelling like a sewer. Romantic. Always. He collapsed on the couch, every muscle aching.
How's New York?
Still terrible. We're close to signing, but they keep finding new things to nitpick. You'll get them. You always do. I hope you're right. I'm running out of patience. They talked for another hour, Elena from her hotel room, Adrian from his couch, both of them too tired to say much of substance but unwilling to hang up. Finally, around 11, Elena yawned hard enough that Adrian heard it clearly. Go to sleep, he said. Don't want to. You have meetings tomorrow. I have meetings every day. They can wait 5 more minutes. Elena. Fine. But I'm coming home tomorrow night no matter what, even if I have to leave before everything's finalized. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I miss you too much. Adrian's chest tightened. I miss you too. Tomorrow night. I promise. Tomorrow night, Elena kept her promise. She walked through Adrian's door at 8:30 Friday evening, looking completely wrung out but smiling when she saw him. Adrian pulled her into a hug, and she melted into it like she'd been holding herself together through sheer force of will. Hi, she mumbled into his chest. Hi yourself. Is Mia asleep? Not yet. She's been waiting for you. As if on cue, Mia's door burst open and she came running, launching herself at Elena with enough force to nearly knock her over. You're back. Did you bring me something? Mia, Adrian warned. What? She always brings me something. Elena laughed, fishing in her bag. Lucky for you, I did, but you have to brush your teeth first. Deal. Mia disappeared into the bathroom and Elena sagged against Adrian again. Long week, he asked. The longest, but we signed. It's done. Congratulations. Thanks. It doesn't feel real yet. She looked up at him, and there were shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Can I stay tonight? I know it's not one of our designated nights, but Elena, you can stay any night you want. You don't need to ask. I don't want to assume. Assume. Please, preferably assume you're staying always. She smiled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Okay. They got Mia to bed, Elena reading the dragon book with the correct voices while Mia giggled, and then it was just the two of them again. Elena changed into the clothes she'd left in Adrian's drawer, and the domesticity of it made his heart ache in the best way. I have something to tell you, Elena said when they were settled on the couch. Adrian's stomach dropped. That sounds ominous. It's not. At least, I don't think it is. She took a breath. The board wants me to take on the Tokyo office. It would mean more travel, a lot more, maybe a week out of every month. Oh. I haven't said yes yet. I wanted to talk to you first. It's your career, Elena. You don't need my permission. I know, but it affects you too. Affects us. And I need to know if that's something you can handle. Adrian thought about it. A week every month without her. 25% of their time together. Gone. But also Elena getting to do what she loved, building something she believed in. Can you handle it? He asked. What do you mean? The travel, the stress, the constant switching between time zones. Is this what you want or what they want from you? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. There was a time when this would have been everything I wanted. Now I'm not sure. What changed? You, Mia, this. She gestured between them. I spent 8 years building my career because it was all I had. But now I have something else, and I'm not willing to sacrifice it for a title. But you're also not willing to give up what you've worked for. Is that selfish? It's human. You're allowed to want both. What if I can't have both? Adrian pulled her close. Then we figure out what matters most and work from there. But, Elena, I'm not going to be the reason you turn down opportunities. We'll make it work. Whatever you decide, we'll make it work. You say that now. I mean it now. And I'll mean it next month. And the month after that. He kissed the top of her head. Take the Tokyo office if you want it. We'll survive a week apart here and there. You're sure? I'm sure that I love you, and I want you to be happy. If Tokyo makes you happy, then that's what you should do. Elena tilted her head up, eyes searching his face. What if nothing makes me as happy as this? As us? Then you have your answer. She kissed him, slow and deep, and Adrian tasted salt, tears, though he wasn't sure whose. When they broke apart, Elena was smiling. I'm going to tell them no, she said. Elena, I'm going to tell them no, and I'm going to delegate more.
And I'm going to stop acting like the company will fall apart if I'm not personally managing every detail. She sounded certain now, decided. I've spent long enough proving myself. I'm done sacrificing everything else for work. You're sure? Completely. This matters more. You matter more. Adrian wanted to argue, to make sure she wasn't giving up something important, but the relief on her face was undeniable, and he realized this wasn't sacrifice. It was choice. Elena choosing them, choosing this life, the same way he'd chosen her. Okay, he said simply. Okay? Okay, I support whatever you decide. They spent the rest of the evening in quiet contentment, Elena's head on his shoulder, some movie playing that neither of them watched. Around midnight, they migrated to bed, and Elena fell asleep almost instantly, the week finally catching up to her. Adrian lay awake a while longer, thinking about choices and compromise and the strange shape their life was taking. It wasn't what he'd imagined when they first got together. It was messier, more complicated, full of small negotiations and constant adjustments. But it was theirs, and that made it worth every difficulty. The weeks turned into months, and they found their rhythm. Elena cut back her hours, not drastically, but enough to make space for dinner most nights, for weekend mornings with Mia, for the small moments that made up a life together. Adrian learned to navigate Elena's world, attending company events in borrowed suits and making small talk with people whose net worth exceeded his lifetime earnings. They fought sometimes, about scheduling conflicts and whose turn it was to handle school pickup, about Elena's tendency to work through weekends and Adrian's habit of saying he was fine when he clearly wasn't. But they fought fair, and they always circled back to each other, and slowly, the fear that had gripped both of them at the beginning started to loosen. 3 months in, Elena officially moved into Adrian's apartment. Not because it made financial sense, her place was nicer, bigger, in a better neighborhood, but because Mia was there, and Mia's school was nearby, and it felt like home in a way her pristine high-rise never had. "This is insane," Elena said, surveying her belongings crammed into Adrian's small space. "We need a bigger place. We could move to your apartment. And uproot Mia? Change your school? No, she's settled here. Then we stay here and play Tetris with your designer furniture. Or," Elena said slowly, "we find somewhere new, together, a place that's ours, not yours or mine." Adrian looked at her, heart skipping. "That's a really big step." "We've already taken all the small steps. Might as well commit. You want to buy a house with me?" "I want to build a life with you. The house is just logistics." They started looking the following week. Elena approached it with the same intensity she brought to business acquisitions, researching neighborhoods and school districts and creating spreadsheets of pros and cons. Adrian let her take the lead, occasionally vetoing places that felt too big or too formal or too much like Elena's old apartment. Finally, they found it. A 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with a yard for Mia and enough space that they wouldn't be constantly tripping over each other. It needed work, paint, new floors, a kitchen that hadn't been updated since the 90s, but it had good bones and felt right the moment they walked through the door. "This is it," Elena said, standing in the empty living room. "You're sure? There are 6 other places we haven't seen yet." "I'm sure. This is home." They put in an offer that day. It was accepted by the end of the week, and suddenly they had a closing date and a mortgage and 1,000 decisions to make about paint colors and furniture placement. "We should tell Mia," Adrian said one night, 3 weeks before the move. "She already knows we're looking." "No, I mean really tell her. Make sure she understands this is permanent." "She's 8, Adrian. I think she gets it." "Still, I want to make sure." They sat Mia down the next evening, both of them more nervous than the situation warranted. Mia listened patiently while they explained about the new house, about Elena officially moving in, about how their family was changing shape. "So Elena is staying forever?" Mia asked when they finished. "If that's okay with you," Elena said. Mia rolled her eyes, a new habit she'd picked up at school. "Of course it's okay. You're already here all the time anyway. Now you'll just have your own bathroom." Adrian laughed, tension breaking. "That's true. Can I paint my room purple, but—" "Absolutely not," Elena said. "What about blue?" "We'll talk about it." Mia seemed satisfied with that answer. She went back to her homework, crisis averted, leaving Adrian and Elena to marvel at how simple she made it all seem. "Kids," Elena said. "Yeah, they really don't sweat the small stuff." "Is this small stuff to her?" "I think to her we've been a family for a while now. We're just finally catching up. Elena leaned against him, and Adrian wrapped his arm around her, watching Mia work through her math problems with determined focus. This was his life now. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and solid and his. The move happened on a Saturday in early June. Adrian's friends showed up with trucks and muscle, and Elena hired professional movers who made the whole thing look easy. By evening, they were surrounded by boxes in their new house, exhausted but grinning. Mia claimed her room immediately, already planning where everything would go. Elena stood in the kitchen, making notes about renovations. And Adrian found himself in the living room, looking out at the yard where a crooked tree grew at an odd angle, thinking about crooked shelves and imperfect beginnings. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked, coming up behind him. "That tree, it's growing all wrong. We could have it cut down, or we could leave it, let it be crooked." Elena smiled, understanding. "Like our shelf." "Exactly like our shelf." She slipped her hand into his, and they stood there watching the sunset over their new yard, their new life, everything they'd been too scared to reach for, finally theirs to keep. "I love you," Elena said quietly. "I love you too. Even when I'm being impossible about kitchen renovations? Especially then." "Good, because I have opinions about backsplash." Adrian laughed, pulling her close. "Of course you do. They spent that first night in their new house eating pizza on the floor, too tired to unpack plates, telling Mia stories about the adventures they'd have here. And when they finally got Mia to bed in her new purple room, Elena had caved. Adrian and Elena collapsed in their own bedroom, surrounded by boxes but feeling more at home than either of them had in years. "We did it," Elena whispered in the dark. "We did. We bought a house together. That's terrifying. Little late for second thoughts." "I'm not having second thoughts. I'm having holy shit, this is real thoughts." Adrian rolled to face her, barely able to make out her features in the dim light filtering through the window. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" "The best thing. Terrifying, but the best." He kissed her, slow and sweet, tasting the future on her lips. Mortgages and school pickups and lazy Sunday mornings. All the mundane, beautiful pieces of a life built together. "Thank you," Elena said when they broke apart. "For what?" "For taking a chance on this. On us. For not running when I told you how I felt." "Thank you for being brave enough to say it first. I don't think I ever would have figured it out on my own." "You would have eventually." "Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to wait that long." They fell asleep tangled together in their new bed, in their new house, the first night of the rest of their lives stretching ahead of them. It wasn't perfect. The house creaked and their mattress wasn't quite level, and somewhere in the distance a dog was barking. But it was theirs, and that made all the difference. 6 months into living in the house, Adrian woke up one Saturday morning with absolute clarity about something he'd been circling for weeks. He wanted to marry Elena. Not eventually, not someday when the timing was perfect. Now. Or as close to now as he could manage without completely botching the proposal. The realization hit him while watching her make coffee in their kitchen. The good kind now, because she'd finally admitted her old method was terrible and let him teach her. She was wearing his old college shirt and pajama pants, hair a mess, no makeup, completely unguarded. And Adrian looked at her and thought, this is it. This is the person I want to wake up to for the rest of my life. "You're staring again," Elena said without turning around. "Can't help it. It's creepy. It's romantic. It's both." She brought him his coffee, kissing him briefly. "What's on your mind?" "Everything. Nothing. The fact that I want to spend forever with you, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen." "Just thinking about how far we've come," he said instead. "From the crooked shelf?" "From everything. From being terrified to even admit how we felt to this." He gestured around the kitchen, at the life they'd built. Elena settled into the chair across from him, cradling her own mug. "It's been a good 6 months. The best. Even when I made you go to that charity gala and you had to wear a tux? Even then, though I stand by my opinion that those events are torture. Noted, I'll try to limit them to once a quarter." "You're too generous." They fell into comfortable silence, drinking coffee while the morning sun streamed through the windows. Mia was still asleep. Saturday mornings were sacred sleeping-in time, and the house was quiet in that particular way that only happened before the day really started. Adrian's mind was already racing ahead, planning. He needed a ring, needed to figure out when and where and how to do this. Needed to make sure Mia was on board, though he suspected she'd be thrilled. "I need to run some errands today," he said, trying to sound casual. "Want company?" "No, I mean, you should relax. You've been working crazy hours all week." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You're being weird." "I'm not being weird." "You absolutely are. What's going on?" "Nothing. Can a guy run errands without the third degree?" "Not when he's being suspicious about it." Adrian laughed, standing to refill his coffee and escape her too knowing gaze. "I'm not being suspicious. I just have some things to take care of." "Mysterious things?" "Boring things. Hardware store, dry cleaning, the usual." Elena looked unconvinced but let it drop. "Fine. Be mysterious. I'll stay here and work on those reports I've been avoiding." "On a Saturday?" "Some of us have actual responsibilities. Some of us know how to delegate." "I delegate plenty. You delegate the things you don't care about. Everything else, you micromanage." Elena threw a dish towel at him, but she was smiling. "Get out of here before I find something for you to micromanage." Adrian escaped before she could question him further, grabbing his keys and heading out into the bright Saturday morning. His first stop was his mother's house. She opened the door with a knowing smile. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've known you for 32 years, and I can tell when you're planning something." She ushered him inside. "Coffee?" "Just had some. Mom, I need to ask you something." "About Elena." "How did you, Because you have that look. The same one your father had before he proposed to me." She settled into her favorite chair, studying him. "You're going to ask her to marry you." It wasn't a question, but Adrian nodded anyway. "Yeah, I am." "Good. It's about time." "We've only been together for 9 months." "You've known each other for 8 years. I'd say you've done enough waiting." She leaned forward. "What do you need from me?" "Grandma's ring, if that's okay. I know you said you'd give it to me when the time came, and I think the time is here." His mother's eyes went soft. "Of course. Your father would be happy knowing it's going to someone you love." She stood, disappearing into her bedroom and returning with a small velvet box. Adrian opened it, looking at the ring he remembered from childhood. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that had belonged to his grandmother and then his mother. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but it had history, weight, meaning. "It's perfect," he said. "She's going to say yes, you know." "I hope so." "I know so. I've seen the way she looks at you. That woman is completely in love with you." "I'm completely in love with her too." His mother smiled, pulling him into a hug. "Then what are you waiting for?" "Good question." Adrian left his mother's house with the ring burning a hole in his pocket and a plan forming in his mind. He needed the right moment, the right place, something meaningful, something that connected to their story. The answer came to him as he was driving home. The park. The specific bench where they'd had their first real conversation 8 years ago, both of them hiding from that party, talking about everything and nothing until the early morning hours. He'd take her there. Just the two of them. No fanfare, no grand production. Just honest words in a place that had mattered from the start. But first, he needed to talk to Mia. He found her in the backyard when he got home, building something elaborate with sticks and string that might have been a fort or might have been abstract art. With Mia, it was hard to tell. "Hey, kiddo, can we talk for a minute?" She looked up, face serious. "Am I in trouble?" "No, nothing like that. I just need to ask you something important." Mia abandoned her project, giving him her full attention. "Okay." Adrian sat down on the grass next to her, trying to find the right words. "You know how much I love Elena, right?" "Duh. You're all gross and kissy all the time." "Right. Well, I want to ask her to marry me, to be part of our family officially, but I need to know how you feel about that first." Mia's eyes went wide. "You're going to propose?" "If you're okay with it." "Are you kidding? That's so cool." She threw her arms around him. "Elena's going to be my actual stepmom." Adrian laughed, relief flooding through him. "So, you're good with this?" "I'm amazing with this. Can I help pick out flowers for the wedding?" "We have to get her to say yes first." "She's going to say yes. She loves you. She told me." That stopped him. "She did?" "Yeah, last week when you were at work." We were making cookies, and I asked her if she loved you, and she said yes. She said you're the best thing that ever happened to her besides me. Adrian's throat went tight.
She said that? Yep, so she's definitely going to say yes. Mia pulled back, studying him.
When are you asking her?
Tomorrow. At the park.
The one where you guys first met?
How do you know about that?
Elena told me. She tells me lots of stuff.
Mia grinned. You're going to need a good speech. I'm working on it.
Make sure you tell her all the reasons you love her. Girls like that.
Where did you learn that?
Movies. Duh. Adrian ruffled her hair, pulling her close. Thank you, kiddo, for being okay with this, for loving Elena the way you do. She's easy to love, just like you. They sat there for a while, Mia eventually going back to her fort while Adrian pretended to help, but mostly just thought about tomorrow, about the words he'd say, about the ring in his pocket, about the life they were building together. That night, after Mia was in bed, Adrian and Elena settled on the couch, with a movie neither of them paid attention to.
Adrian kept touching the ring box in his pocket, making sure it was still there, trying not to be obvious about it. You're fidgety tonight, Elena observed. Just tired. Liar, but I'll let it slide. She curled into his side. I love you. You know that? I know. I love you too. Even when I'm impossible? Especially then.
Elena smiled against his chest. Good, because I'm about to be impossible about the bathroom renovation. Of course you are. They talked about tile choices and paint colors, and Adrian marveled at how something as mundane as bathroom fixtures could make him this happy. It was the small things, he realized, the daily negotiations, the shared decisions, the building of a life one tiny choice at a time. Sunday morning came bright and clear. Adrian woke before Elena, watching her sleep for a moment before reality crashed in. Today. He was doing this today. His stomach did a complicated flip. Elena stirred, eyes opening slowly. Morning. Morning. Hey, I was thinking, want to go for a walk in the park today? Just us? What about Mia? Already arranged. Mom's taking her to that science museum she's been wanting to visit.
Elena stretched, considering. A walk sounds nice. Give me 20 minutes to get ready. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. Adrian showered, changed clothes 3 times, checked the ring box approximately 17 times, and generally acted like someone about to do something life-changing. Because he was.
They dropped Mia at his mother's house. Mia gave Adrian a not-so-subtle thumbs up when Elena wasn't looking, and drove to the park. It was busier than Adrian had hoped, families with strollers and joggers and people walking dogs, but their bench was empty. I haven't been here in forever, Elena said as they walked. Is this where we met? Yeah. She looked at him, something shifting in her expression. You brought me here on purpose. I did. Why? Because this is where it started, where we spent 4 hours talking, and I went home thinking I'd just met someone interesting, not knowing you'd end up being everything. Elena stopped walking. Adrian, what's going on? His heart was hammering now, adrenaline making his hands shake slightly. Come sit with me. They settled on the bench, the same one from 8 years ago, though the wood was more weathered now, and someone had carved initials into the armrest. Adrian took Elena's hands, trying to organize thoughts that kept scattering. I've been thinking a lot lately, he started, about us, about how we got here. Okay, and I keep coming back to that night we met, how easy it was to talk to you, how I didn't want the conversation to end. He squeezed her hands. I didn't know it then, but I think part of me recognized you immediately, recognized that you were going to be important. Elena's eyes were bright, starting to understand. Adrian, let me finish, please. He took a breath. I spent years looking for something that felt right, dating people who were fine but never quite enough. And I convinced myself I was being honest, being true to what I wanted. But really, I was just waiting for you to tell me what I was too scared to admit myself. That you loved me. That I'd been in love with you for longer than I let myself see. That the reason no one else worked was because they weren't you. They couldn't be. Because there's only one you, and you've been mine since that first night, even when neither of us knew it yet. Tears were streaming down Elena's face now. Why are you saying this? Because I want you to know. I want you to understand that this isn't impulsive or reckless, or me caught up in the moment. This is 8 years of friendship and 9 months of being together and a lifetime of wanting more. He released one of her hands, reaching into his pocket for the ring box. This is me asking you to marry me. Elena's breath caught, her free hand flying to her mouth. Adrian opened the box, showing her his grandmother's ring. It's not fancy, it's not some huge diamond or a custom design, but it belonged to my grandmother, who loved my grandfather for 52 years, and my mom, who loved my dad until the day he died. And I'm hoping it'll belong to you because I want to love you for however many years we get. Adrian. Elena's voice broke on his name. I know we've had our struggles. I know it hasn't been smooth or perfect. But Elena, I don't want smooth. I want real. I want you, messy and complicated and brilliant and impossible. I want Sunday mornings and terrible coffee and arguments about bathroom tile. I want to build a life with you, raise Mia with you, grow old with you. He took a shaky breath. So Elena Carter, will you marry me? For a moment, she just stared at him, tears running down her face, not speaking. Adrian's heart plummeted. Had he misread this? Was she going to say no? Then Elena laughed, wet and broken and beautiful. You idiot. That's not an answer. Yes. She was nodding, smiling, pulling him close. Yes, of course, yes. Did you really think I'd say anything else? Relief crashed through him so hard he almost forgot to put the ring on her finger. Elena held out her hand, still shaking, and Adrian slipped the ring on. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her all along. I love you, Elena said, cupping his face in her hands. I love you so much, I don't have words for it. I love you too. She kissed him, and Adrian tasted salt from her tears, tasted joy and relief and the promise of everything they'd have together. Around them, the park continued its Sunday routine. Kids playing, dogs barking, life happening. But in that moment, on that bench, nothing else existed except the two of them and the future they'd just committed to. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena looked at the ring on her finger with wonder. Your grandmother's ring, she said softly. Mom wanted you to have it. It's beautiful. You're beautiful, Elena laughed. Even with mascara running down my face? Especially then. They sat there for a while, Elena's head on Adrian's shoulder, both of them processing what had just happened. Engaged. They were engaged. The word felt too small for what it meant, but it was theirs now. We should tell Mia, Elena said eventually. She already knows. Elena pulled back. What? I asked her first. Made sure she was okay with it. And? She's thrilled. Started planning the wedding before I even had your answer. Elena's smile was radiant. That sounds like her. She loves you, almost as much as I do. Impossible, but I appreciate the sentiment. They walked back to the car hand in hand, Elena's ring catching the sunlight every few steps. Adrian couldn't stop looking at it, at the physical proof that she'd said yes, that this was real and happening. When should we get married? Elena asked as they drove. Whenever you want. That's not helpful. I'm serious. Tomorrow, next year, I don't care. As long as it ends with you being my wife. Elena was quiet for a moment. What about this summer? Small ceremony, just close friends and family, nothing elaborate. You don't want a big wedding? I want to be married to you. The wedding is just logistics. Adrian grinned. I love you. I love you too. Now drive faster. I want to tell Mia. They picked up Mia from his mother's house, and the second she saw them, she knew. She said yes, Mia shrieked, launching herself at Elena. How did you know? Elena asked, laughing. You're both glowing, and you keep looking at your ring. Mia grabbed Elena's hand, examining the ring closely. It's so pretty. Can I be a flower girl? Absolutely. And can my dress be purple? We'll see. That means yes, right? Elena looked at Adrian, who just shrugged. That usually means yes. They spent the rest of the day in a happy chaos of planning and celebration. Adrian's mother cried when they told her. Elena called her assistant, who screamed so loud they had to hold the phone away from their ears. Mia made approximately 50 suggestions for the wedding, most of which were completely impractical, but all of which came from a place of pure excitement. That night, after Mia finally crashed from the excitement and sugar, Adrian and Elena collapsed on their bed, exhausted but happy. "We're getting married," Elena said, like she was testing out the words. "We are. I'm going to be your wife. And I'm going to be your husband." Elena rolled to face him. "That's terrifying. Little late for cold feet." "Not cold feet, just, this is real now. We're really doing this." "Having regrets?"
Not even a little. She kissed him softly, just amazed that we're here, that we actually figured it out.
"It only took us 8 years.
Better late than never." Adrian pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the weight of the ring on her finger against his chest. This was his life now, this woman, this child, this house with the crooked tree in the yard. All the imperfect pieces adding up to something perfect. The wedding happened on a Saturday in August, in the backyard of their house under the crooked tree. 50 people, folding chairs, flowers that Mia had helped pick out. Elena wore a simple white dress, and Adrian wore a suit that actually fit for once, and Mia stood between them in a purple dress that she'd campaigned hard for. Adrian's best friend officiated, reading words about love and commitment that felt both universal and specifically crafted for them. When it came time for vows, Adrian pulled out the note card he'd prepared, then set it aside. "I had a whole speech planned," he said, "but standing here, looking at you, all those carefully chosen words feel wrong, so I'm just going to be honest." Elena smiled, tears already forming. 8 years ago, I met you at a party neither of us wanted to attend. We hid in the kitchen and talked until 3 in the morning, and I went home thinking I'd made a friend. I didn't know I'd met my future. I didn't know that the person I'd spend hours talking to about nothing would become the person I couldn't imagine spending my life without. He took her hands, steady now despite the emotion threatening to choke him. "You've been my best friend through every high and low. You've seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. You've loved my daughter like she's your own, built a home with me, chosen this messy, imperfect life over everything else you could have had. And I promise you, Elena, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice. I will love you when it's easy and when it's hard. I will choose you every single day. And I will never, ever take for granted the fact that you chose me too." There wasn't a dry eye in the small crowd. Even his mother was crying, and she'd promised she wouldn't. Elena took a shaky breath, composing herself. "I didn't prepare anything because I knew I'd forget it the second I saw you, so I'm going to wing this and hope it makes sense." "You could recite the phone book and it would be perfect," Adrian said. "Don't tempt me." She squeezed his hands. "Adrian, I have spent my entire adult life trying to prove something. To my parents, to the board, to myself. I built an empire because I thought that's what would make me worthy. What would make me enough?" She paused, tears spilling over. "And then you came into my life and showed me that I was already enough, just as I was. You saw past the armor and the accomplishments and loved the person underneath. You made me feel safe enough to be vulnerable, brave enough to admit what I wanted. And what I want is this: you, Mia, Sunday mornings and terrible coffee and a life built on honesty and trust and love." Her voice broke, but she pushed through. "You're the best decision I ever made. And I promise you, I will spend the rest of our lives making sure you know it. I will love you in all the ways that matter. I will be your partner, your friend, your home, and I will never stop being grateful that you saw me, really saw me, and loved me anyway." The officiant had to pause to compose himself before continuing with the ceremony. When he finally pronounced them married, the cheers from their small crowd were deafening. Adrian kissed his wife, and the world felt right in a way it never had before. The reception was casual, barbecue and beer in the backyard, music from a playlist Mia had helped create. Adrian danced with Elena, then with Mia, then with his mother. He made small talk with Elena's business associates, who'd shown up in jeans and looked almost human outside the boardroom. He ate too much cake and laughed too hard and felt more content than he'd ever been. As the sun set and the party continued, Adrian found Elena standing by the crooked tree, looking out at the celebration they'd created. "Hey, wife," he said, slipping his arms around her waist. "Hey, husband." She leaned back into him. "This is nice." "It is. Simple, small, perfect. Just like us." Elena laughed. "We are many things, but simple is not one of them. Fine. Complicated and perfect. Better." They stood there, watching their friends and family celebrate,
Watching Mia teach Adrian's mother some complicated dance move, watching the life they'd built come together in one beautiful moment. Thank you, Elena said quietly. For what? For not giving up, for being patient with me when I was scared, for seeing past all my walls and loving me anyway. Thank you for being brave enough to tell me how you felt. I don't think I ever would have figured it out on my own. We're both a little slow, but we got there eventually. Yeah, we did. The party continued around them, but Adrian and Elena stayed by the tree, wrapped in each other, watching their future unfold in real time. Mia was spinning in circles, her purple dress flaring out, laughing at something one of Adrian's friends had said. The fairy lights they'd strung up were starting to glow as the sun sank lower. Someone had changed the music to something slow, and a few couples were swaying together on the makeshift dance floor. We should probably get back to our guests, Elena said, but made no move to leave. Probably. They stayed another moment, neither quite ready to break the spell. Adrian? Elena's voice was soft. Yeah? Do you remember what you said to me that first night at the party when we met? That your dress was nice? After that, when we were talking about why we'd both shown up to something we didn't want to attend, Adrian thought back, trying to recall. Something about how sometimes you have to show up to the wrong places to find the right people? Exactly that. Elena turned in his arms to face him. I think about that a lot. How we were both at a party we hated, hiding in a kitchen, and we found each other anyway, like the universe was making sure we didn't miss it. You believe in that kind of thing? The universe arranging meetings? I believe in us. And I believe that some people are meant to find each other, even if it takes them 8 years to figure out what to do about it once they have. Adrian kissed her, soft and lingering, tasting champagne and cake and the promise of everything they'd have together. When they broke apart, Mia was standing there with her hands on her hips. You guys are being gross again, she announced. We're married now, Elena said. We're allowed to be gross. That's not how that works. Sure it is. Adrian scooped Mia up, making her squeal. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's required. Put me down. Nope, you're stuck with us now, gross and all. Mia giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck. I guess that's okay, but only sometimes. They rejoined the party, the three of them together, and Adrian felt something settle in his chest. This was it. This was the life he'd been searching for without knowing what he was looking for. Not perfect, not smooth, but real and solid and his. The party wound down as night fully settled in. Guests left with hugs and well wishes, promising to see them soon. Adrian's mother took Mia home for the night, their gift to the newlyweds, and suddenly the house was quiet. Adrian and Elena stood in the backyard, surveying the aftermath of the celebration. Chairs needed to be folded, decorations taken down, 100 small tasks that could wait until tomorrow. Leave it, Elena said, reading his mind. It'll still be here in the morning. You sure? You hate mess. I'm learning to live with it. She took his hand, leading him toward the house. Come on, we have better things to do than clean up. They made it to the bedroom, and for all the build-up, all the anticipation of their wedding night, they ended up just lying in bed, talking in the dark like they'd done 1,000 times before. About the wedding, about the funny moments, about how Mia had cried during the vows, even though she'd sworn she wouldn't. I'm happy, Elena said eventually. The words simple but weighted. Me too. Not just wedding day happy. Happy in general. Content. Like everything finally makes sense. Adrian pulled her closer. I know what you mean. Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if I hadn't told you how I felt that night? If we just kept going the way we were? Sometimes. But then I remember that you're the bravest person I know, and you wouldn't have let us keep hiding forever. You think? I know. You built an empire from scratch. You faced down your parents and proved them wrong about everything. Telling me you loved me was terrifying, but you did it anyway. That's who you are. Elena was quiet for a moment. I was so scared that night. I know. But I was more scared of watching you fall in love with someone else, of spending the rest of my life wondering what if. She shifted to look at him. I couldn't live with that. Whatever happened, at least I'd know I tried. I'm glad you tried. Me too. They fell asleep tangled together, the first night of their marriage settling over them like a comfortable blanket. And when Adrian woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through the windows
and Elena's sleeping form beside him, he understood something fundamental about love.
It wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone you wanted to weather imperfection with. Someone whose flaws complemented yours, whose struggles you'd gladly share. Someone who made the hard days bearable and the good days extraordinary. Elena was all of that and more. She was Sunday mornings and midnight conversations. She was fierce intelligence and unexpected vulnerability. She was home in every sense that mattered. She stirred, eyes opening slowly.
Morning, husband. Morning, wife. That's still weird to say. Good weird or bad weird? The best weird. She stretched, yawning. What time is it? Almost 10. Your mother isn't dropping Mia off until noon. So we have time. We have all the time in the world. And they did. Not just that morning, but all the mornings to come. Years of them, stretching ahead in an unwritten future full of possibility.
They would have hard days. There would be fights and frustrations, moments when they questioned everything. Elena would sometimes work too much, and Adrian would sometimes shut down instead of talking. They would disappoint each other, fail each other in small ways, be human and imperfect together. But they would also have good days. Mia's graduation, years from now. Lazy Sundays with nowhere to be. Anniversaries marked with quiet celebration. The accumulation of small joys that made up a life. And through all of it, they would have each other. That afternoon, after they'd picked up Mia and cleaned up the yard and settled back into normal life, Adrian found himself standing in the living room, looking at the shelf they'd brought from Elena's old apartment, still crooked after all this time, now holding a framed photo from their wedding. You know, Elena said, coming up beside him, we could fix that. It's been bothering me for years. We could. But we're not going to, are we? Nope. She smiled, slipping her hand into his. Why not? Because it reminds me of where we started, of the night we finally stopped pretending, of two people who were too scared to risk what they had, but did it anyway. That's sentimental of you. I'm a married man now. I'm allowed to be sentimental. Fair point. They stood there looking at the crooked shelf that had somehow become a monument to their relationship. Imperfect, a little bit wrong, but theirs, just like everything else in their life together. Hey, Adrian, Elena's voice was soft. Yeah? Remember that first night when you joked about me marrying you? Vaguely. You said maybe you should just marry me, and I didn't laugh. I remember. I didn't laugh because part of me wanted to say yes right then. Even though it was a joke, even though we were just friends, some part of me knew. Adrian turned to face her fully. Knew what? That you were it for me. That joke or not, someday I'd want exactly that. You, me, forever. She reached up, touching his face. I think I've been in love with you since that first night in the kitchen. I just spent 8 years convincing myself it was impossible. Nothing about us has ever been impossible. Improbable, maybe. Complicated, definitely. But never impossible. No, Elena agreed, smiling. Never impossible. Mia appeared in the doorway, holding her latest drawing. Look, I made us as a family. The picture showed 3 stick figures holding hands under a crooked tree. Above them she'd written in careful letters, My family forever. Adrian felt his throat tighten. It's perfect, kiddo. Can we put it on the fridge? Absolutely. As Mia ran to add her drawing to the collection, Elena leaned into Adrian and he wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the moment. This was his life. Imperfect, complicated, occasionally chaotic, but undeniably his. And he wouldn't change a single thing about it. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows, highlighting the crooked shelf, the scattered toys, the lived-in comfort of a house that had become a home. Outside, the crooked tree swayed in the breeze, as imperfect and perfect as everything else in their life. And in that moment, Adrian understood the greatest truth he'd ever learned. Love wasn't about finding someone who completed you. It was about finding someone who made you want to be better while accepting you exactly as you were. Someone who saw your flaws and loved you harder for them. Someone who turned a simple life into an extraordinary one just by being part of it. Elena was all of that. She was the answer to questions he hadn't known to ask. The home he'd been searching for without knowing he was looking. She was every impossible thing made real, every fear conquered, every dream realized. She was his wife, his partner, his always. And as they stood there in their imperfect house with their imperfect life, Adrian realized that this messy, complicated, beautiful thing they'd built was exactly what he'd been looking for all along. It just took him 8 years and one crooked shelf to figure it out.